Morning, everyone. The City of Grand Haven regular City Council meeting of Monday, November 7th, 2022 is hereby called to order. Would the clerk please call the roll?
Fritz,
Here.
Lowe,
Here.
McLaughlin,
Here.
Cummins,
Here.
McNally.
Here. We don't have anyone scheduled to deliver an invocation this evening. I had a seasonally appropriate poem, but in view of the fact that the gallery looks pretty packed, I'm going to skip right to the Pledge of Allegiance. So would everyone please rise and join me in saying the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Seems particularly appropriate on the eve of elections. Okay, I would entertain a motion to accept the consent and regular agendas.
So moved.
And is there support?
Support.
Anybody got anything they want shifted? Or anything they want to talk about? I'm going to adjust the agenda slightly by asking the clerk we're going to move the public hearing that's scheduled to after new business. So item 12 on the agenda is a public hearing with regard to an obsolete property rehabilitation finding, and it's going to move to after the new business on our agenda. And then on the consent agenda, with your permission, I would like to pull out G, H, and J, so I've got a few questions about them, and I thought they were worth discussing. I don't think it'll take a long time, but anybody got any reservations about that?
No reservations, Mayor. Perhaps we move our second call to the audience before our closed session, in case there's any folks that don't wish to wait.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea as well, Rob. I think that's a very good idea. Okay. Did you get that, Maria?
Yes.
Let me make a note just to... Second call. Okay. All right. At this time, we will entertain the first call to the audience. Pardon?
We had a vote.
Oh, I'm sorry. Could you please call the roll?
Fritz,
Yes.
Lowe,
Yes, as amended.
McLaughlin,
Yes.
Cummins,
Yes.
McNally.
Yes. We're going to move to the first call to the audience. At this time, members of the audience may address council on any item, whether on the agenda or not. Those addressing council are asked to provide their name and address and will be limited to 3 minutes of speaking time. Council will hear all comments for future consideration, but will not have a response at this time. Those not physically present who would like to may dial in by calling 616-935-3285. If it continues ringing, please remain on the line until your turn. We will take all callers. Is there anyone who'd like to address council?
Good evening, Mayor and Council. My name's Doug Vance, 100 Washington. You all know why I'm usually here, but that's not what I would like to talk about at the moment. What I'd like to talk about is a presentation that's going to be before you tonight regarding the outdoor dining for 2023. I'm assuming you've all had a chance to look at the presentation. The pages weren't numbered in the presentation, so I numbered them, and I'm going to start at page 5, where it says the goals of Grand Haven Main Street's outdoor gathering spaces, and one of the points says there's no restrictions to a specific business or establishment. I don't know how that even got in there, since it's restricting the majority of businesses downtown. Second point says even when the businesses are closed, well, if the businesses are closed and we're trying to generate more traffic downtown for the businesses, what purpose does that serve? We're generating traffic even when the businesses are closed. Point number 3 says for our community to enjoy and running a business downtown in the summertime, I am very much aware, as probably other business owners are, that the majority of the residents of Grand Haven avoid downtown during the summer for the most part because they're waiting till when they can get down there and enjoy the beautiful downtown that we have. So I don't know why that would be in there, that we're making it for our community. We're really making it for the visitors. I mean, no question about that. Fourth point is booths on the sidewalk in front of shops and restaurants. Well, if we're going to get booths on the sidewalk in front of shops and restaurants, then we should close all of Washington. I think that would be fair for everybody, and that would get the booths in front of all of the businesses instead of the select few. And the final point says that we're in partnerships with restaurants. Nobody's talked to me. I do run a restaurant downtown. There's no partnership with the Copper Post. I'll let other businesses and restaurants speak for themselves. And it talks about additional attractions, experiences, and seating. Certainly doesn't create any more seating for us. It does create some additional seating for some businesses that have already more seating than we have. I'm not here to protest my competitors. You know, we're all in this together. I'm just saying that it doesn't add additional seating for my particular business, not that it should. On page 6, the next page, it says, discussion of impact to all businesses in the area, retail and restaurants. There was no discussion. Discussion with who? Not with me, not with a number of other businesses that are probably going to step forward and talk to. Thank you.
Thank you, Doug.
Good evening, Jim Hagan, 400 Lake. I'd like to talk about the same topic. And I actually spoke last meeting about a problem I have, and when I looked at the presentations, it's exactly the same problem as last time. And I questioned Pat McGinnis, how much are they going to be paying us? And you know, it was one of the, we'll work on it. And what I found out at the retention meeting was they paid 25 cents per square foot per month. For a parking spot that equates to $45, for the 20 spots that are, you know, whatever, taken out of service, that's $900 a month. I'll pay $900 a month if I can have all those parking spots. I mean, we read in the Grand Haven Tribune, it's amazing what they, you know, it's amazing what it's done for the businesses. Of course, that was from one of the drink establishments. And no wonder it's amazing when you're getting additional space for basically free. It has to be extraordinarily profitable. And you talk about the drink carts, they're right in the middle of the street. Are they paying for that space? Are they paying for the space that people line up? I think these are all questions that really need to be asked. And we've heard we need to raise money. Well, why are we giving these spots away? I've had correspondence with Ryan, Councilman Cummings, and you know, I was informed that Saugatuck charges a lot more when parking spots are taken out of services by businesses. I came back with a response. Grand Haven should be leading. We shouldn't be behind where Saugatuck is. We should charge more than Saugatuck. Our city is worth more. That space is worth more. That first block of Washington is premier space. We need to charge what it's worth. Thanks.
Good evening, Madam Mayor and honorable council members. My name is John O'Connor. I am the owner of Long Road Distillers at 18 Washington. Last week, I submitted a letter to you all, as well as the clerk, to be included in the record on behalf of 12 businesses who signed on to that, and there have been a couple additionals since I submitted that letter, including Peace Frogs. I'd like to be added to that list in support of the social district and ongoing outdoor dining and hospitality in Grand Haven. I'm really proud of the city of Grand Haven and the work they've done over the past 3 years to create not only the social district, but increased opportunity for hospitality businesses and retailers to have additional outdoor space in downtown Grand Haven. Having traveled around the state as well as living in Grand Rapids, where we have 8 social districts, I'm more than proud of the fact I think Grand Haven has done it better than any other social district I've had the privy to and the benefit to visit throughout our great state. We are happy to pay for our outdoor dining space. We paid for every square foot of it, and we're happy to continue to do so. I know there's a concern about parking in the loss of those 18 parking spots in Grand Haven. I'd be happy to be part of and help lead a discussion about how we deal with parking in Grand Haven. To me, it's not a parking problem, it's a parking demand management problem. That there are a variety of businesses downtown, especially with the increased outdoor dining and social district, that there are more people downtown. Well, there's also more employees downtown. If you look at that list of businesses who participated, we've all added investments into our businesses. We've added increased staff to support those outdoor. Those are jobs in downtown Grand Haven that are good paying jobs. They're hospitality jobs, so they're hard, they're difficult. We've all read about the challenges in hospitality as of late, but that outdoor dining and outdoor social district it's a family-friendly atmosphere. It warms my heart every time I come downtown and I see a mom and a dad and their children outside playing beanbags and enjoying a cocktail, maybe walking around to a shop with a stroller and enjoying a beer. I think it's inviting, and I think at the end of the day, the vibrancy that it has created. Yeah, Grand Haven, we all know, is a tourist town in the summertime. There are people that come from all over North America and the world to enjoy the beauty that is Grand Haven and the waterfront that we have. We have a short-term rental above our unit that we inherited when we bought the building, and I get so much positive feedback from folks that are visiting Grand Haven who say this is an absolutely amazing experience downtown. It's like nothing I've gotten to experience anywhere else. It's really great to be downtown, where we have access to the water and we have access to shops and restaurants and all the beautiful things that Grand Haven has to offer. So we urge you on behalf of the businesses that have signed on to that letter to continue the social district and the outdoor dining opportunities in downtown Grand Haven. Thank you.
Thanks, John.
Hi, council members. Thank you for your time. I'm John Morgan, 206 and 119 Washington. I've reached out to you with a letter and a signed petition. It's been added to since then. I would like to give you an updated copy and a list of the signatures. There, if I may. Thanks, folks.
Thanks, John.
Thank you, John.
Yeah, thank you. I'll try to do this quickly, but this is a complex issue. It's a very important issue, and I represent 46 of the businesses in the first 3 blocks of Washington Avenue. I want to make that clear. There was some confusion and misinformation that these were employees or whatever, but this is signed by 46 business owners or their authorized representatives, in addition to employees, residents, shoppers, and even delivery people, for what it's worth. So, after stating that, I'd just like to tell you that our stakeholders are the most important constituency in the issue, but we feel left out. Most don't recall seeing a DDA survey or being asked for input. Those who did, that I heard from, said no to the continued closure. Most weren't notified. Deliberations on topic were already being held. Most feel 2022's decision to close was rushed, that it was hushed, and that it was, frankly, emotionally biased. And this was going to be a repeat for 2023. Most feel we gave a hand to the restaurants and bars during COVID, and now are getting a thumb in the eye in return. So, I believe tonight you're going to be hearing from the DDA, who's going to say a representative sampling was taken for their survey supporting a continuation of closure. Our customers and us say it wasn't. DDA is going to say they got 56 survey respondents in a month. We say we got 88 in 10 days. DDA is going to say we need vibrant gathering spaces and activities. We say we've already got them. That's why people are coming down to our city in droves. And we say cutting off streets and parking isn't the way to enhance them. DDA is going to say 39% of downtown businesses reported an increase in sales. Well, we say that's not the same as 39% increase in business sales downtown, and we say only 39% of businesses reporting an increase over the last year seems weak. Might it have been stronger or more if not for road parking enclosures? Hey, let's ask Calico Cat here. DDA is going to say 84% of businesses want outdoor space the same or bigger next year. We say we don't, and we would like to know who was asked, who the respondents were. DDA is going to say 38% of visitors visited more because of closure. We say if they also say another 38% visited less and 50% visited the same, that's a wash. And in our opinion, a failure for what we had to invest. And also, when do 38 and 38 and 50 equal 100%? I'm not really sure how the math adds up there. These are DDA statistics. DDA is going to say 94% of visitors wanted outdoor space. We say, great. Come enjoy our already existing broad sidewalks, benches and planters, our waterfront stadium, Central Park, Farmers Market, Chinook Pier space, and amazing boardwalk and beach. Plus, our extensive, already existing outdoor dining. It's not like we don't have it. It includes Snug Harbor, Tippecanoe, Portobello's, Long Branch, Anna's, Copper Post, Lucy's, and of course Kirby's dual open-air dining options. And let's not forget Oddsides, Kilwin's, Aldia's, and Jumpin' Java's outdoor seating, all within blocks. DDA is going to say next year's tables and parking spots can be made available for general use. And we say that's a smoke screen. Use will still be by restaurants and bars and still at most everybody else's expense. DDA will say we have 1,318 total relevant parking places downtown. We say 462 are private and therefore don't count. We say of the remaining 856, most are lead compared with the gold of Washington Avenue parking. Our count was 26 of 54 Washington spaces in the first 2 blocks that were closed this summer. I apologize if I got that number a little off because I counted it after the street was reopened, but it looked to me like it was 26 out of 54 in 2 blocks on Washington. This is gold that they're giving away. We say that loss of 49% of that gold means a lot more than the DDA's mere 2.1% of everything, lead and all claim. So, in conclusion, we say the closures are unfair. If they had just helped the bars and restaurants, okay. But they hurt most of the rest of us by taking important shared parking for their use and pushing their patrons up the street to take spaces our customers would otherwise use. In addition to obstructing the handsome street view of the river, the closure blocks passerby view of some retail businesses in the first block who don't have the in-street dining presence. Additionally, it's confounding to the rest of our customer vehicle traffic between the beach, the bridge via Jackson, and the downtown. Further, we say the bars and restaurants in the first block don't fill the seating they own, so why should they get public space too? Kirby hardly used its lower level open air dining area at all this summer. The restaurants are closed much of the day, and while busy enough during peak evenings and weekends, the closed street is otherwise often nearly vacant. Ask the staff at Portobello's if you doubt me. They've got a complete view of the street, and they told me what they saw. I've talked to many people who have said that is way underutilized space, especially to give it up all day. Anyway, and the set-aside spaces in front of Eagles and the Armory were completely empty all summer. That was an absolute waste, but some want to do that again. We say this isn't Lincoln Street in Miami with the road closed for 10 blocks of shops and outdoor dining. We love the concept, and I think that's what has impelled people to push for this emotionally, but we don't have fleets of Uber or cruise ship drop-offs or blocks and blocks of apartment buildings, condominium towers, hotel complexes, and multi-story parking structures within the distance, within walking distance. We say this is a community, we say this is a year-round community. We are blessed with a strong tourist interest in the summer, but all of us rely on area residents for the long run. That's just a fact. We may like young families from Allendale or hipsters from Grand Rapids popping in too, but for many, the 52-year-old ladies from Spring Lake pay the bills, guys. And we say, regardless of who they are, the vast majority of people who come to Grand Haven have to drive to get there. And that means they have to have open roads and places to park. And most want to park close to the center of town and their destination. Some are older or have health issues, some are in a hurry, some are hurting kids. Many are not here to spend the day and will be unhappy and less likely to return if they have to walk far. It's a fact of human nature, and our customers have been telling us that for years. Nobody wants to park behind the police station. I'm sorry, they just don't. Many wait until after the summer to come to town. Many end up shopping or dining elsewhere. Parking and access trump beanbags and booze carts every time. I'm almost done. I'm sorry. We say this heavy favoring of selected businesses eventually creates pressure on the less favored to close. Their replacements will either be competitors of the favored, causing depressed earnings or growth for all in that category, as in too many small businesses fighting for the same customer, or they will be the lower caliber seasonal businesses, like cheap souvenir shops that dilute the visitor's experience during the peak months and drag down the shopping and dining district for locals with their shuttered storefronts during the other 6 months of the year. We say, while we do not want to see it expand to the boardwalk and waterfront stadium, we do strongly support the current social district, as long as it's well monitored, and we, like you, share a goal of a vibrant downtown of dining, shopping, strolling with outdoor activities, seating, gathering for young and old resident and visitor. To that end, we would be pleased to present to you, the council and the DDA, with our recommendations of how to do that sustainably as soon as may be feasible. In the meantime, we say, please, return our street and parking to us as they were intended. And with the shared utility we based our business investments and personal careers upon. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Hey,
Good
Joyce.
evening. I'm Joyce. I own Vintage Green at 7 North 7th. I serve on the Recruit and Retention Committee, which is where the outdoor dining has been discussed for the past years. I also serve on the Main Street Board and the Executive Committee. At the October board meeting, several business owners came to the Main Street Board meeting. They requested no outdoor dining in the block between Harbor and First and presented a petition that they stated had 42 business owners and signatures. When the topic came during the agenda, I made the motion to delay the vote and send it back to the R&R committee for more discussion. Since that meeting, I have requested information concerning this petition and who did sign. I would like to share what I have learned since the October meeting. First, a survey concerning outdoor dining was sent out August 26. It did give an option to say no to outdoor dining. Out of the 42 business owners who signed the petition, several are employees, the mailman, the delivery man, second floor office, tenants, shoppers. There are actually 27 business owners who signed. I would like to point out that 2 of those, sadly, are closing for good by 12/31. 5 of those 27 are second floor owners with no customers on the main floor. If you take away these 7, that brings business owner signatures to 20. Now let's go back to that survey that was sent on August 26th. Out of the 20 who signed on this petition to not have outdoor dining, 6 of them said, leave the dining as it was. Math tells me that gets me down to 14 owners. I've also heard from businesses who were not asked to sign this petition, as well as some who have said they chose not to sign the petition. I also believe this petition says no to outdoor dining. So does this include all outdoor dining? It also covers no events on Saturdays in the first 3 blocks. I would like to make sure we are noting these differences in decisions being made. There are over 250 businesses in the entire district, and then over 100 in the first 3 blocks, which does include the depot. In closing, if I knew all of these numbers prior to the October board meeting, I would not have made the motion to delay. What I would have done instead is understand that we have several owners who are unhappy with outdoor dining And we need to work, help, understand, change what we can, listen and work together for the betterment of our district. Thank you.
May I please address that?
John,
No.
you can come back at the last call, the second call to the audience. Anybody else?
Hello, my name is Dan Mindertsma, and I live at 454 Grant, corner Sheldon. I'm here tonight to tell you that the fall season yard waste program just isn't working for myself and neighbors with whom I've discussed this. It used to be that Republic Services would provide a staff truck at multiple city locations on Saturday mornings during the fall season. Possibly due to COVID, the truck was replaced by dumpsters a couple of years ago. While this approach had the advantage of weekend-long no-touch service and probably reduced the cost to our carrier as well, it's created several problems. First, the dumpsters at my location, which is Lakeshore Middle School, are typically full by Friday night. That's because I believe they're used during the working day by commercial enterprises. Your typical resident just doesn't get to their yard until the weekend, rendering this service useless. Because they're full, there's quite a mess blowing around the neighborhood from the yard waste that overflows or is left outside the dumpsters, in spite of the modest sandwich board signs the city has installed. Finally, the dumpsters are nearly impossible to use at any scale by residents because you can't lift a full leaf container over the side. So counterintuitively, residents bring their leaves in paper bags, which could have been left curbside for free. So I ask that you consider reverting to staffed trucks at these locations. This would reduce the commercial stream and allow residents to once again roll their leaf containers to the truck to have them dumped by the equipment operator. Thank you.
Thank you, Dan.
Hi, everyone. I am Jim Avery. I operate with my wife Karen, the Pump House and the Toasted Pickle on Harbor in Washington. I am a big supporter of outdoor dining. I think that my rationale is a lot of what you've heard before. I thought my perspective maybe that I would add is from my customers. I have the pleasure to serve customers day in and day out at both locations, and I must tell you they love it. I know that because they tell me. It's different than dining indoors. In fact, at the Pickle in particular, we sometimes have a lot of seats indoors and people will dine outdoors. What was explained by kind of the vibrancy and the excitement and fun, I think fits Grand Haven perfectly. And I just hear that over and over and over again. I'm also, I will say that I'm very happy to find on our tables, when I'm clearing tables, outdoor and in, other businesses' garbage. So I constantly find, cups, wrappers, things, bags, and other things. And honestly, it makes me feel good because I think that one of the things that outdoor dining has done, and hopefully my businesses will do, is bring people to Grand Haven to support all of us. I see that as a very powerful thing. I know it's kind of a unique position. The other business owners a lot of them that I've spoken to say the same thing, and it's that excitement. It's the fun of being outside, and really, I mean, it's whether it's it really doesn't matter. But there's something special. There's something fun about outdoor dining, and as the rest of the businesses, I'm happy to pay for the outdoor dining. Or whatever it takes. I think that there's definitely some pros and cons, but my perspective is a little bit unique because I'm in here day in, day out, serving customers, talking to them, visiting with them, and honestly, they simply love it. Thank you.
Thank you, Jim.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Sharon Beam, 214 Washington. I too support outdoor dining. What I don't support as a retailer for 23 years who also owns a store in downtown Holland, the closure of our main street. If we're going to close it, I agree with Doug, then let's close all three of it. But I will tell you, back in the Jerry Witherall days, they tried that. They tried to do them all, and it was almost the demise of our downtown. Mr. Vance, I'd like to address you and remind you and everyone else that Grand Haven is not a tourist town. We are a year-round downtown. I have spent almost 20 years working with DDA directors to get that message across. I have been on the TV multiple times with people from Grand Rapids, the regions, reminding people we are a year-round downtown. We're losing ground. And when we close streets, we lose even more ground. Have you walked downtown? We have 11 t-shirt shops. How many of those t-shirt shops stay open year-round? Like all my other fellow merchants, I pay for the snowmelt system. There were city councils who had the foresight to want to make sure that downtown Grand Haven remained a downtown. We are the heart of Northwest Ottawa County. And yet, when people come from the northern state communities, they come downtown and they see all the dark storefronts. You know where they go? They go to Holland. And I can tell you that because my partner in our Holland store sells these people their shoes, and the first question they say is, if I get them home and they don't quite work, can I return them to the Grand Haven store? And my partner says, well, you went right past Grand Haven. Sharon carries the same things. And their response is, I went down Washington Street and there were so many dark storefronts, we figured downtown Grand Haven was closed. Folks, we have a problem. And it starts with not having from the harbor to the highway open year-round. Thank you.
Mary Giannis, Calico Cat, 10 Washington. I sent you a letter, an email that you probably all got and read, and I agree with everything that everyone has said so far, and I totally support outdoor dining. It's lovely, but the closure of the street did not work this summer. I was there every single day, and I saw it. It was empty. And we had, Jeremy's got some lovely pictures of looking like a nice, vibrant place to be, but you know, you can pick, I could have taken those pictures too. There were days that they had lots of things, and it was usually a Friday night and a Saturday, and sometimes on a Sunday if Kirby was open. It just didn't work, and it blocks the waterfront from the downtown, and I think that probably is the most important thing besides the loss of parking places. One other real quick thing, if you are thinking of expanding the social district to the waterfront, I think we need to think about the message that we are giving young people, families, that you have to have a drink in your hand to have fun, and that's not what Grand Haven is about. Thank you.
Thank you, Mary.
Hi, my name is Laura Gerard. I own the surf shop at 16 Washington, which is also in the first block. I support the closure of the first block. It's morphed every year, and it's something that not only the people, the tourists, but the people who live in the township, who live on the other side of town. There are some people that maybe don't come down during the summer, but there are a lot of local people who do. And I see those people in my store every day. I think it's a positive thing. I think it's moving forward. And I think we need to do that. We have communities all around us that are trying new things to make sure to maintain and also bring people in and bring families in. And I think we need to think about that. You can't just do status quo. You have to move forward. I did sign the letter that John from Long Road had sent to you, and I stand behind it with everything that was said. But a lot's been said, and I know you've been very careful about the retail in the first block, and I do appreciate that, but there is another side to it, and I've seen some really positive things down there, and I think we can go forward with that. It'll change a little bit this year if you accept it, the next year until we get it really, really good, as we always do in Grand Haven. Thank you.
Thank you, Laura. Okay. Nope. Hang on.
I'm Debbie from Talakepaki, across the street from the Toasted Pickle. I'm not against outdoor dining. I think it's, people sit, they look at stores. But I do think I would like to see the street open all the way down to the end. I know it has benefited some of the restaurants down there, but I think it's important to have that drive-through. So that's, we would walk by there, we would see that space open with those picnic tables, nobody would be there, and people would be playing with the cornhole. That's nice and everything, but I think it was just taking up too much space and too much parking for the retail down on that end of the block. Thanks.
Thank you. Okay. Moving on, it looks like we've got a presentation by Jeremy on closure of Washington and social district recap.
Good evening, Jeremy Swiftney, Grand Haven Main Street. Apparently I'm on double duty tonight with the agenda too, so I think this will work. But we're here to just kind of review 2022's outdoor dining and the 2023 request from the Main Streets Board. So we'll kind of jump right into the presentation. There's some pictures, as I think Mary had said. I've got some nice pictures up here of people enjoying the district from Long Road space to Kirby space. And then in the next slide, in that social zone area, this was taken on a Saturday afternoon. You can see entire space is full, all of the picnic tables, which we had 22 different picnic tables in the area full, the games all being used.
Say it one more time, Jeremy.
We had 22 total picnic
I
tables.
got that part. When was it taken?
It was a Saturday in July, around the 23rd-ish. I don't know if that falls on a Saturday.
Got any pictures of a Tuesday in July?
I don't have pictures of every single day. We didn't take pictures of every single day on that area. We could check with public safety and see if their camera caught anything on those days. But in general, our thought is 2022's plan and what our goal was a positive. This is a Wednesday evening at 10:30 after the musical fountain. So you still have people downtown even close to 11 o'clock at night on a weeknight. When we think about was it a success, these are some of the things that we're talking about. It created an additional area for everyone to enjoy. To Doug's point, it was the space that was in the angled parking spots, the spots that we created some additional seating for anyone. That was our goal for 2022, is not just to have space for each of the restaurants in that first block only, but to think about how we could attract more people into that area. I would say that was a success. We did succeed in having more people in that area than were there in 2021 and 2020 by creating the gathering space, by creating the games, and having it be open, not reserved to any specific restaurant, but have it all open to anybody who wanted to come down, whether it was 10:30 in the morning, 2 in the afternoon, or 8 o'clock at night. People were in the area, they were playing the games, they were gathering, sitting down, having dinner, or just enjoying each other's company. It adds, obviously, additional vibrancy to our district through the activities, entertainments. We had busking going on in there most days. And then the additional seating where people are now gathered in a space that would normally just be a car parked in that area. It does create an experience-driven activity for our community to enjoy, which is in our district, in the DDA's district. So it's creating something for somebody to do. You may want to go have dinner, you may want to come play games, you may want to go shopping. All of those things work in conjunction in Grand Haven. So you have all of them working together, creating this experience for those to enjoy rather than it just being specifically only a restaurant or specifically only retail shopping. It gives them something for everyone to enjoy, whether it's waiting for tables and kids playing games while the adults have a conversation. Families can come down, enjoy that space, and use it as they see fit. It promotes outdoor use of space, and it does put boots in front of our sidewalk, so to speak. It does add more people into our area, and it does keep them there at a longer time than maybe they wouldn't be if that space were reserved for parking and not reserved for outdoor dining and outdoor gathering. And then the partnership with restaurants, they activate their spaces as they had done in 2020 and 2021, and they took it a step further in 2022 as well. And then we have the other space, which was the outdoor space that we're focused on, whether it did or didn't work. We feel that was a success. We came to you last year and said, we want to try this. We want to put more people in there. We listened to the retailers that are in the first block. Their issues were that people were not gathering in the space. The restaurants took up the whole space. If you remember in 2020 and 2021, they had the barricades lined down the center line. You couldn't get down the middle to Calico Cat. You couldn't get down the middle over to Surf Shop. There was no access from basically one end to the other than to walk to one of the two crosswalks at the end and cross that way. So this year we said, well, if we closed it all down, we would put more people standing in there. It would be more access to the storefronts. So in front of Calico Cat, they would have an opening. If Surf Shop wanted, they could do that. They made an agreement with Long Road to have additional seating in front of their establishment and have their display of surfboards and rentals sitting out there like they had done in 2021 as well. But at the end of the day, we feel this was a success because we did create vibrancy and we did add more people into that area than were there in previous years. So we started talking about, what does the process look like? Last year, the request came to you, I would say you would all agree, very late in the year or very early in the year, I guess, as you would look at it, since it was in 2022 that we were making the request. We didn't want to make that same error twice. So we started talking about this at Recruitment and Retention, one of our committees, and Preservation and Placemaking, and we talked about it starting in June. What do we want to think about? What does this look like right now? Do we see areas that we could improve? Do we see areas that we need to pull back on? Talk about what the impacts are going on. How is this impacting retail? How is this impacting restaurants? Each business is their own. We're not going to tell a restaurant what days to be open or whether to serve breakfast or lunch or dinner. And we're not going to tell a retail establishment whether they should be open or closed on Sundays or whether they should stay open or later in the day or open later in the day. We leave that up to the business. The business owner is their owner. They're the ones who are deciding what's best for their business. We're not the professional on that front. If something works for a business, great. If something doesn't, we're not there to tell them what to do. They're there running their own business, and we have to take that step back and understand that it is their business and they're doing what they feel is best to succeed. So at Recruitment and Retention, we talked about a number of things. We talked about what type of impact does it have to the businesses, not only in the first block, but in the entire district. Retail, restaurant, even the service industry, who may not have any customers that come and go, but is still an important stakeholder that employs a number of people in the downtown area. We decided we would do a survey of those stakeholders. We wanted to make sure that their opinions were heard, so we sent out a survey August 26th. We left it open in August. We said, here is the survey. We're going to leave it open. This is for our Recruitment and Retention to discuss. It had an option to do anonymous or non-anonymous. I haven't gotten into who took what. That doesn't matter. Nobody knows the actual names of people who took the survey, but the survey was taken. It was sent out and left open until our meeting for Recruitment and Retention in September. I believe that was the 27th of September that we went over the results of that survey and went through and used that survey to help shape whether we would recommend this or not to our board in the future. Because our Recruitment and Retention Committee is the one who would recommend to the board, and then our board still has to vote on it after that. They felt, and it was something that we talked about throughout the summer, it does keep people in our district for longer. By creating a gathering space, it's making people stay in that area for a longer period than maybe they wouldn't have if that weren't in the area. We did use a number of pieces of feedback from visitors who would almost overwhelmingly I would almost say everyone has told me that it was a positive. Anytime that I was down there enjoying dinner or visiting with my family, my mom is a snowbird, if you will, so they're down here very consistently, and I see them very regularly. You run into people who are like, oh, this is amazing, and then they find out that you're kind of the one that helped facilitate it, and they tell you more about how great it is and how most other communities don't think outside of the box like we have. So I'm very appreciative that you've given us the ability to think outside of the box and to look at different ways that we could attract people to our town and to our downtown specifically. Preservation of place, we talked about a couple other things in that committee. We're more concerned about placemaking and preserving history and historical buildings in this committee. So we talked about the importance of creating vibrant gathering spaces and activities in the district and how that is a draw for people. People want an area that is vibrant and active to gather in. We talked about the importance of maintaining cleanliness and improving any procedures that we saw this year. I'll tell you right now, Kirby did an amazing job this summer. They were power washing once a week. We're looking at that as the new norm, something that we need to essentially not even recommend, but require moving forward for all of the businesses that are utilizing that space, including the additional outdoor space that's not reserved to a restaurant, but would be reserved to just anybody. We also recommended talking about additional flowers, trees to screen the barricades on the end of Washington possibly, as needed. Those are some conversations that we had. We received a grant in 2022 that came in middle to end of July, so spending that fund in 2022 is difficult, but spending that money for a 2023 project could work. So we talked about adding some flowers, adding some additional vibrancy into the next year if this were something that were approved. The survey feedback that we heard about earlier, we had 56 responses. So when we send out a survey to all of our stakeholders, the best I can do is send that survey out and then hope that those people respond, understanding the survey came saying recruitment and retention is using this information to make any future recommendations. We have to hope that they take the survey. Could we have gone door to door? We could try that, but I'm a one person and a one-man operation. It's very difficult for me to go have a 20-minute conversation with 90 different businesses in a matter of a month and still get anything else done in that time. The online survey felt like the best way to do it. It also allowed people to do it anonymously. We opened it up to have employees take it and have residents take it, have visitors take it as well if so chose. We wanted to make sure that we had a robust feedback as best as possible. There were some typos. I think John had mentioned a couple of them. So I've got those corrected in this, but from the business standpoint, 39% said they felt it increased sales. Now, when we say that, we have to take that pill a little bit differently. This year is far different than 2021, and we've heard businesses who said, well, my numbers were down this year. That's actually the case across the board. If we start looking at businesses, the majority of our businesses' numbers are down in 2022 versus 2021. It's the nature of the economy, it's the nature of inflation, and that's what we're experiencing. It doesn't matter whether they were in the first block, the third block, in Centertown. We have businesses down anywhere from 5 to 10% to up to 25%. And it has to do with the way people are spending their money. So trying to pin it on, did the outdoor dining have a positive or negative impact, was really tough. But we wanted to have the business owners give us, in their words, did they feel it increased their sales? Did they feel it had no impact whatsoever? Did they feel it decreased their sales? So you can see the numbers. 39 said they felt it increased their sales for the summer.
Jeremy,
55,
can I ask a quick question? Okay, so 56 total responses. Are those business owner responses, or are those the mix of business owners, employees, and visitors?
It's a mix of business owners and visitors. We had no employees who took it that were not business owners, and majority were business.
How did you get visitors surveyed?
The visitors I put in there because we had a visitor / resident, so it was kind of a both, as a patron, as a visitor. So some of the residents took the survey saying they were a patron or a shopper.
So you could tell whether it was a business owner or a visitor.
Yes, when we created the survey, I made sure to drill down so how you answered the first question. Are you a business owner? Are you an employee? Are you a resident? Or are you a patron? Put you into that grouping of questions. So then we knew who answered which questions. Yeah.
Thank you.
16% of the businesses that responded said they wanted no outdoor space. 84% said they wanted either space bigger than or the same as 2022. 51% said the same as 2022 would be okay. 10% including said entire block, close it all the way back to First Street in both directions. 23% wanted to see us do something a little different and transition away from having reserved seating and it all be outdoor gathering space with no specific seats to one restaurant or another. We did talk about that at the committee level, and one of the concerns to that would be not only are you going to take away space from restaurants, they may need some time to plan on that, but how would we clean it? How would we afford the cost to make sure that that space maintains a level of cleanliness that we would expect? And it would fall on the DDA. I can't ask Derek and his staff to clean it. That would be unfair and unrealistic. Like, we at the end of the day felt like that type of lift would be too much for us at this point in time. We couldn't maintain a cleanliness level that we expected on that large of a space alone. Onto the visitors, shoppers. 38% said they visited more often because of the outdoor dining. 50% no change in their visiting habits, and 12%, that was a typo, visited less because of that outdoor space. But 94% wanted the outdoor space to maintain. 6% felt, no, let's take it back to whether it's traffic or parking or whatever. The parking impact, what type of impact does that have? To John's point, there are 462 private parking spaces. Some of those are signed as public spaces, including the Covenant Life lot, 1 South Harbor, and the Fifth Third building, which is basically housing all of their employee parking. So to say you can't count it at all is probably also an unfair statement. You can count it as employee parking in some cases, or in some cases you can count it as parking. Covenant Life says that you're allowed to use that space outside of the Sunday mornings when they're using it for their service. So we still have 1,318 parking spots in the downtown. If we're removing 20 spaces in the first block, 2 spaces in the second block for the Toasted Pickle space, 3 spaces on 2nd Street for Armory space, 3 spaces for the Elk space, which are in front of those businesses, 2 spaces in front of Centertown space. It's not a huge impact at the end of the day. It's 1.5% of the parking stock for the first block. It's 2.1% of the entire downtown. So it's not a huge request in how many parking spaces we're taking up. And that is a little bit jaded there as well, or not jaded, but not quite accurate, because you did have some space outside of our district, like if you're allowing space in front of stands, for instance, they had space as well. So maybe less in terms of the total city parking, but this is specific to the DDA since it's a request from the DDA for that space. So moving forward, what's our recommendation? We discussed it at the board. It was definitely well discussed throughout the meeting. It was a split vote. But at the end of the day, we felt comfortable recommending that the current closures be allowed in 2023 with no changes. We felt what we tried to do this year in creating an additional vibrant gathering space worked to the point that we'd like to request it again. Dates of closure to be narrowed. That was something we talked about at recruitment and retention, is how do we have a less impact for the businesses? How do we make sure that we're listening to those retailers? We've heard it was dead after Labor Day. We've heard it was dead before Memorial Day. Well, we need to try to narrow down that scope and narrow that season down then. So 5/22/23 would be the Monday before Memorial Day. 9/11/23 would be the Monday after Labor Day. So basically, we're giving businesses 1 week to set up, 1 week to tear down, but to be there during the summer months, be ready to go. That gives me time to put out those tables. I did that with 1 volunteer, set up tables and games, and I took them down with 1 volunteer, taking away the tables and games. So it gives us time to get the area set up and as vibrant as we possibly can. Location of the outdoor drink carts or sales carts. That's something that we definitely discussed. We feel that they need to be placed more appropriately, and they need to be reviewed by the DDA director, so me and the city manager, who's not here tonight, but Ashley. We felt like the 2 of us, plus anybody that maybe Ashley felt comfortable including, say public safety, for instance, or public works, would be able to think about what's best not only for where that drink cart may be located, but what's best for a Calico Cat or a surf shop based on where that drink cart is so that they don't lose visibility. That was a big issue that we saw this year, is they weren't quite placed exactly where public safety maybe had told them, and they were something that came in well after our request. So we need to think about the future of those. We don't want to take those away. It's a very large investment, but we also want to think about where can we put them around that maybe would be better for the other businesses in that block as well. Current uses by establishments to be allowed between those dates. Basically, we're just saying that we recommend the one space that we used for our outdoor gathering space to stay that way, and the restaurant space to kind of be set up and reviewed by the city manager and the DDA, because we have a number of changes this year. The old Santos Stefanos building will be a new cafe. It'll be Cafe Tamaki by next year. We're going to have, Jim spoke earlier, he's going to most likely be opening another restaurant in that block. So we're going to have different restaurants in that block than we did this year. So that's going to change what available space might be for the restaurants with the current spaces that they had. So we want to make sure that we're reviewing that. If a restaurant wants space in front of their storefront, and it's in that space where the city is renting that space to them, that's great. We want to make sure that we're reviewing it from the DDA's standpoint and from the city's standpoint. So we wanted to include both of us on that. More focus on the cleanliness. We talked about that earlier, both within our space and the restaurant space, requiring weekly power washing, sweeping of the streets, making sure that that space stays clean and vibrant. Additional trash receptacles, that's part of the DDA grant funding, so we are going to be looking to purchase those if this is approved again for 2023 to make sure that we have additional trash in the area. We tried with some temporary use trashes that didn't work. They disappeared very easily, but paying the money, and Derek can attest, they're not cheap, for the Victor Stanley is the way to go. That's the way that they won't walk away. They're not going to be disappearing on us, and it'll be something that can be then handled much easier. And then additional activities to be reviewed.
So,
and
are you talking about more permanent trash cans downtown?
Those are not necessarily completely permanent. It would be something we could remove seasonally, but adding an additional 2 maybe or so would definitely help the area by having more places for people to put the trash, and you won't end up into situations where it's overflowing or people are leaving it on tables because there was no room in the trash.
But that could also be addressed with more frequent emptying. True?
It could be. It depends on how often staff is able to get down there. Having more trash cans probably makes more sense from a staffing standpoint than telling somebody they need to be emptying trash in the area, every hour. That would be something that Derek could probably weigh in on as well, but we're trying to make it as easy as possible on city staff as well if they're emptying the trash in the area. Of having a couple additional receptacles would make more sense to us rather than having somebody consistently down there having to empty the trash. And the final item was to have additional activation activities, those to be reviewed throughout the season, so possibly additional or new games, live entertainment. We'll be talking about that with possible Friday night concerts going on at the Waterfront Stadium. We've talked with a couple restaurants about the gaps, like a Monday, for instance, if Kirby is closed next year as they were this year. Maybe a Monday is a good day that we have some vibrant live music in that area. Additional flower planters, we also talked about that earlier, putting some additional planters in that area and possibly trees to shield the end of Washington on either side if needed to add to the vibrancy.
So you're going to block off the view from the waterfront down to our main downtown, is what you're saying?
Not like tall trees, think like shrub level trees. So the same height as what the barricades are there currently, much shorter than a vehicle would be.
Okay.
So when I talked about earlier what the space would be in the first block, you have all of these restaurants, to be determined where Kozak's was. You have the Anna's House in Grand, which really does not show up in that color up there. Electric Hero, Long Road, Surf Shop, Cafe Tamaki, Calico Cat, Harbor View, and Kirby. So there is a large swath of area, and then Odd Side on the other side of the space that could expand into those parking spaces if they requested, and then the outdoor space that we've requested. At the end of the day, we're looking at it as an activity for people to come and enjoy, and something for maybe another community can't do that we can do. Visibility downtown, I feel like seeing people in that area is just as important as seeing a car in that area. So you can argue either way on that as to whether you can see the waterfront or not, if cars are driving down there or if people are gathered down there. People gathering, people in our downtown is a good thing to have for the restaurants, for the retailers, even for the service industry. When people are, downtown and picking a place to have a business, they want to be in a vibrant downtown, and that's why they're there currently. So that is it. I've opened to questions if you've got them. I know it's not a action item at all tonight, so if you'd rather wait on that, you certainly can. I was just trying to take up a little bit. Am I good on time? All right, I'm good on time. I'm getting the thumbs up, so.
We got questions? Pardon me.
Jeremy, is your recommendation going to be formally submitted to City Council for action?
Yes, yeah, we didn't want to do that now. I talked with Ashley quite extensively about what the timing would look like on this, and is this something we wanted to do a presentation first? We talked about this even in early 2022 when you approved this. We didn't want to bring it up and have it feel rushed. We wanted to do a presentation and then formally submit the recommendation after that presentation and after we've heard your feedback as well.
Thank you.
So all you discussed so far is the expansion of outdoor food services for restaurants, and as we're talking about is mostly restaurants and more restaurants is what you're talking about in the space down there, correct?
Well, the space is majority restaurants in that block. There's 2 retailers and 1 service industry and over 11 restaurants. So yes, we're talking about that space being available, but the space in front of Calico Cat could remain open. The space in front of Surf Shop could also remain open. The only way that I would feel comfortable from my standpoint, if this is approved, allowing somebody to expand in front of another retailer is if they had a signed agreement from that retailer saying, yes, I'm okay with you having your restaurant in front of my space. Otherwise, it's to remain open so people can go right up to that store and do the shopping, walk by and do the window shopping and see what's there.
In the years gone by, I'm an old business down there, and a good example is their storefront is their billboard. And so you pay for a billboard on a highway for cars to see it come in and that also. But they're paying higher taxes for that spot there to have that billboard, their window and everything in that. Are you saying that even just having more space out there like that is going to bring more attraction for them? And or as I seen when I was down there, it was pretty dead and Mondays and Tuesdays down there. It was like not looking. There's nobody there half the time. Jeremy, you know I'm down there all the time. I live downtown. I'm walking there. My wife and I are all the time. There's time periods where the restaurants weren't open. They were closed and the spaces were empty. There was nothing down there happening. Other businesses were still open, but they weren't. They closed the whole day, or they close at 2 or 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and they're no longer there. Are we catering just to the restaurants in that to try and? I have no idea, but if I own a retail shop, I was down there for 25, 30 years, and I had my picture window there, and I put all my stuff in there trying to sell it, and all of a sudden they put all the stuff out in front of my business, and I can't see it no more. It would bother me a lot. That's what I seen down there. I seen how it distracted amongst the hardcore businesses that have been down there for us for so long. I have a hard time with it. I just want to make sure that we maintain our downtown. I'm all for outdoor spaces. I went out there, we had the cafes, we came in, I was for that, and that was when we had the pandemic. I was all for moving it out there, but we still have outdoor spaces out there. We can find other locations to put in games if you want games down there. There's places we can do that. Do we have to block a whole street off for it, though? There's opportunities at different places.
Madam Mayor?
Yep.
First of all, I want to thank Jeremy and the Main Street DDA for, and the 2 committees you mentioned, the preservation and placemaking and recruitment and retention, for doing all the work. I really appreciate that. It's important that this is just a presentation right now, but it's important to gather your thoughts on what went well, what didn't go so well, so that, following this, experimental, closure. And it's good to debrief on that, and naturally we're going to have, some diverse views on some of that. I believe the results, are clearly divided. We hear from the different stakeholders. Some of the merchants liked it, some of the merchants did not like it. And for the record, for years, I've been against closing Washington Street for the Coast Guard Festival for the very reason you mentioned. I think it has an adverse impact on every retailer. So I'm not in favor of allowing that to happen again. This is a little different, and it's not black and white, but I feel like we're we have to have these conversations in order to find out what's next. For me, it's hard to believe that just last summer, 3/4 of our residents here in Grand Haven, those under 60, were still wearing masks and not eating indoors because they did not yet qualify for vaccines. Maybe hard for some of us to remember that. I know we all want to shut it out, but it's true. Here we are, a little more than a year later, but we have a little bit of amnesia, and we've forgotten just how hard hit the hospitality industry was during COVID. We've forgotten how many restaurants nationwide went under, and we seem to have forgotten what it was like to not have a whole lot of choices of places to dine here in Grand Haven, downtown. I haven't forgotten that. We've also forgotten that unlike seasonal businesses or summer rentals that can come in and close in the off season, the hospitality industry here in Grand Haven is a year-round business that has to that doesn't get all of its money close to Christmas time, or just by visitors in the summertime. It has to have a decent summer season to stay alive and to be open year-round for the benefit of all the residents here. As for the traffic for a downtown shopping district that is essentially only 3 blocks, we've got a lot of things that are less than ideal. I'll just give you 2 examples. One-way streets like Franklin Avenue, which make it difficult coming from any direction on Harbor or to turn around, especially because the vast majority of our parking is on Franklin. Think about it. All that parking for the downtown, all those parking lots for Washington, the vast majority of it is up and down Franklin for 3 blocks, but it's a one-way street. Another suboptimal example is having a large parking lot at Harbor in Washington. Why? That is prime real estate for any retailer, for any merchant, and yet we have a big parking lot right there, right where we, would definitely want to have a placemaking kind of. And this is why having experiments such as this is good. We can learn from it, and I applaud the Main Street DDA for going out and looking and trying these things, because we want to make this attractive for all of our stakeholders, not just those that are old like me, but my kids and my grandkids and young families that choose to live here. A single person of any age, we want to have that vibrancy downtown. In our decision, City Council, and this is really just for the public because you know that this is just a presentation, we're always faced with balancing needs and desires of constituents and stakeholders. So none of this is black and white, and a lot of this is trade-offs. One of the questions I often ask myself at these meetings is whose voice is not represented in the room or hasn't, had much of a voice. And in this situation, I believe there was a voice that was maybe not heard as well. And I think we need to amplify that voice, and that voice is of some of the non-hospitality retailers on the first block. Mary and some of the others. We need to, listen a little bit more. Those, and they need to be front and center of our discussions on how we go forward and make adjustments. Personally, I believe the experiment shows some success, a great deal of success in creating some vibrant. It doesn't mean it's perfect right now, and I think you've made that clear. However, in trying to try some of these new ideas, we need to make sure that we have our retailers, our merchants back, and that we do no harm. And my biggest concern is probably for for the retailers on the first block that are non-hospitality. Did we do some harm, and how can we adjust? For example, was the music a detriment to their clientele? It may be that some retailers didn't notice any difference, or it was complementary to the clientele that was coming down and utilizing the social district. It may be that other retailers, that wasn't their clientele. In fact, they were scared away, by the crowds, right? So we need to kind of do some, adjustments. for me, and I am just one of 5 voices, I'd like to see the Main Street DDA work with the non-hospitality retails on the first block, like Calico Cat and Harborview, and others, to come up with some compromises regarding the exterior space and how it could be used. What could the businesses, do to make, or what could we do, what other things could we do to make these businesses feel less encroached upon, that their clientele will still find their storefront inviting and feel welcome there? Are there compromises? And I'm going to throw this out, not because anybody mentioned it, because I just jotted it down. You guys are coming up with all the great ideas, but are there compromise options, such as leaving some of the streets open, but shifting the public space across to the parking lot at Harbor and west of Outside Ales, or extending the social district across Harbor to the waterfront stadium? I believe that there could be more compromises could be made here if there was some more listening to alternative perspectives and trying to get to the root cause of concerns, whether that's loud music, obstruction, access. Anyway, I've said enough. The one thing I want to say is I think Mayor McNally said instructed us last time here on the council, go out and talk to people we know. Well, for everyone here tonight, I'd actually ask you to do the same, but don't talk to people you already know. Don't talk to people who think and look like you. If you're a hospitality merchant, reach out and sit down and have a conversation with the non-hospitality merchant in our community. If you're old like me, reach out to some of the young people with families, but don't talk to them to tell them why you're right or wrong. Try to listen and see if there's some ideas that we can kind of come together and get behind. I think this created a vibrancy. Let's not let this sort of tear things down. I think with just a little bit of coming together, you guys are really close to making it. Oh, by the way, why are we not having, some of the retailers, couldn't we take the step of some cross promotion with some of the retailers there on the front? Like, how do we fund those through some of the hospitality retailers? So I think there's some creative ideas that we could, if we would just sit down and listen to one another. So this is your presentation to us. I just wanted to say thank you, Jeremy, and thank you to the entire Main Street DDA for giving us this feedback of while it was still fresh in your head.
Yeah. Thank you, Karen. And I'll echo that thanks to all the stakeholders who are interested in this. We all want a vibrant and healthy downtown, not just during the summer, but year-round. So I know everybody cares. Everybody's got their different lens and angle, and I think we're trying to strike the right balance. But thank you, Jeremy, for your presentation. Well done. I appreciated hearing what the DDA has been doing through committee work, through surveying, through kind of monitoring progress and taking notes along the way, and then taking all that feedback to your full board, and then ultimately a recommendation to us. That's really, I think, a well done and really a process that we expect and like to see. So thank you for that work. I think Ms. Workman earlier said that we can probably do some more listening and working together. I think that's ideally what happens, right? That I think we have a successful thing that's been shown a lot of innovation for our community. That we're not just focused on parking cars, but we're actually trying to build spaces for people to move around in. And quite frankly, I would be somebody that would say, maybe that experiment failed many years ago during all 3 blocks, but I think there's opportunities in the future where we will have true downtowns that focus on walkability and moving people around and having vibrant spaces versus where do we park cars in relation to that. That won't be as much of our focus anymore. We'll get there. We're not there yet, but I think this first block of Washington during part of the year is a really innovative and progressive step to take. I think about if I were to simply just kind of walk into this room and walk out of this room, I may notice all of you, but I won't really see your faces, remember you, know where you're at. Whereas if I come in and I sit down and look out at all of you, I'm noticing all of you. I'm seeing your faces. I'm seeing things that I'm interested in, and I want to know more about And I've had that same experience as I've sat outdoors dining in Grand Haven and other communities. I've had that experience sitting inside of restaurants, looking outdoors and seeing different spaces that I want to check out. So I struggle with seeing how parking a car in front of a business or a car driving by adds more value than the value that's been added by this outdoor dining. And I do think there's room for improvement with entertainment options. I think there's room to talk with businesses about how can we expand these hours and keep it a vibrant space. I know it was a struggle for employees, and there's a lot of other factors that go into that. I do think that space has a lot more value than what we've charged for it. In fact, I know that, and I think that there's probably going to be, if it continues, some increases and fees related to that. That I hope that through social districts, maybe downtown dining, that we can pour that money back into promoting our downtown district as well, to where it's kind of can promote those other businesses and be kind of a win-win. So I've heard a lot tonight. There's a lot to think about, but I think I'll just leave it there for now.
Kevin?
No, I'm good, thank you.
Mike, you got anything else?
We didn't even talk on the social district expansion and that.
I think,
We're not recommending that at all right now.
yeah, I
Okay.
think that the DDA
We tabled that
postponed that
for.
one and wanted to take a look at it separately.
All right.
Yeah, we're reviewing with all of the event holders. We had heard from a few of them, but it was too soon to make any recommendation without having all of the event holders, event holders have their say in that as well. But we're not recommending that at this time to expand it. You could see it in the future, you could not. It depends on what some of those event holders decide and feel what's best for their event.
Okay, I just want to be part of the conversation
Yeah.
on that, because I did notice a lot of different things. We need to enforce it better than what we do, because if you notice, I was the one that said maybe we ought to just move it down further, for the simple fact is, everybody was down there with it anyways. They weren't in the social district, they were out of it. So I think a good thing for us is enforcement, and to start on that. I just want to bring that up a little bit, something for you to look at on that.
Absolutely.
I'm not, don't really, you guys talk about cars and stuff. What I'm talking about is businesses in their front stores and that, making it more visible for them. Work with all of them down there. It's the best thing. We've got to make sure these long-term businesses are seen. If you're going to create a lot of people, but there's times down there when I was down there was nobody there. I mean, the restaurants were closed, and then when they're closed, there's nobody sitting in there. It's different time periods. So got to kind of work with them, tell them, say, hey, if you're going to do this, is what we need to do. If we want to be vibrant, we want to be good downtown. We spent money for a snow melt. We want to be year round. So we got a lot of money invested in all that. So we can't have vacant storefronts like we have down there. We need to fill them up with some good ones, not just t-shirt shops. I've seen a lot of those down there. We got to recruit more businesses here. So.
I had a couple questions, Jeremy. One is, are you aware of any other, I'm going to say Michigan city, but that's closing down its main street or a substantial street to promote something like this?
I'm not necessarily aware of any in Michigan. That doesn't mean that they don't exist. There may be some on the east side where I haven't visited. But I'm not aware of any in Michigan that are completely doing this, but within the country, yes, there are definitely communities that are doing this. Communities are seeing a shift to more gathering space, and that's something that we're also doing. It's the reason that you see a number of communities turning parking spots into pocket parks. The same reason to create outdoor gathering space, and that's what we're looking at here, is trying to do something unique. And we're weighing those 20 parking spaces and the value of that versus the value of somebody who's sitting at that table for 1 to 2 hours in front of those retail stores. And is it more important to have the car parked there or people parked there? So those are conversations that we've had in our committee, and we feel like it is better for somebody who's sitting there and able to walk right across the street versus a car being parked there. But that's something that we've had that conversation. I think Karen was right. This is definitely not a situation where it's going to be 100% one way or another. Unfortunately, that's just the way it is. But we're trying to show the positives to it, and we're certainly willing to work with all of them. I think that's what's great about everybody who got up here today and spoke, no matter what side of the aisle on this decision they'd be on, is they're open to finding ways to make sure it's successful for everybody. That could be, better wayfinding signage, that could be better vibrancy. We'll have those conversations, but I think everybody here, no matter what side, is willing to have those conversations.
Okay.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Mike.
I was just going to remember, if you went to, when we were at MML, and Royal Oak did that, they turned it into a gathering spot. Remember the center of the town? It was a parking lot and the old courthouse and stuff like that, and they turned it into a gathering place.
They did.
A good example for you.
Though it wasn't, it was an industrial parking lot or something right down in the center of town. Okay, I have a couple things I want to say, and one is that I find very little balance in what the DDA is recommending. And when I say that, I think that it favors the restaurants at the expense of the shops. And I hear you say, I can't go down and talk to everybody individually, but I don't think you have to, but I think you ought to, all right? And when I say that, I think you know what they think already. So, I mean, a month ago, 42 business owners, or some version of that, let you know that they don't favor this policy. How many of them have you spoken to individually since? And I'm not trying to put you on the spot. I'm just telling you, you ought to be going out and talking to people, all right? And you ought to be finding out. But even if one shopkeeper, and I'm going to use Mary as the most disadvantaged person, all right? I watched what happened down there, and we were very clear at the beginning, don't squeeze the shops. And it was very clear that the restaurants squeezed the shops. We asked in advance for a diagram of how this was going to get set up. It wasn't given to council to approve. It all went in haphazardly. The beverage carts were news to me. Maybe these guys knew about them in advance, but I went down and went, wow. I heard one of those beverage carts did $10,000 of business the first night. All right, so yes, we'll be vibrant if that's the vibrancy we want, but we need some balance in our policy. And I honestly don't think we're there. So I've expressed this to the DDA. Obviously, they disagreed. And I know this is an important thing to you. I listened to you just now say it would be much more fair to me to say make that a common area with tables accessible for open dining for anyone, and no restaurant gets to expand out into that area unless they want to do takeout. That, to me, would be much more fair. I understand what you're saying about they wouldn't clean it up, but to be honest, many of them didn't clean it up this last summer anyway. So when you're basically, I understand exactly why the restaurants want it. I'd want it if I were a restaurant. You can seasonally staff to double your seating. And in some ways, that's good for our town. But we have a great sidewalk cafe ordinance, and it served the town well for many, many years, and it was a vibrant and has been a vibrant Main Street in that way. So I didn't find, frankly, personally, the 2 sets of cornhole boards, which seemed like that's really all I saw. In addition, the picnic tables people enjoyed. There's no doubt in my mind. It was a nice look, but the activity was two sets of cornhole boards and an opportunity to sit at picnic tables that weren't otherwise pledged. So the activity could be significantly increased by saying, let's just do common picnic tables, if that's really what you're looking for.
Your Honor, may I interject?
Sure.
I just wanted to say, Jeremy, I think, this is all feedback for your commission. I think we all realize that you don't make the decisions, that you're facilitating all of this, and we really appreciate all that you've done to kind of pull together the presentation and work with the various commissions. I think we all are each just So I don't want you to
No.
feel like this is
Not my first time up here, so.
Yeah, I know. So anyway, I just wanted to interject and say that, thank you for doing that, and I think take it with the spirit of, could you take this back to your, to your commission as just some, additional input from all of us.
Yep.
They got anything else? Thanks, Jeremy. Okay, I'm going to ask the clerk to read the consent, well, let's start with a motion to approve the consent agenda as amended. Can I get support for that? Or a motion?
So moved.
I'll second.
Motion by Cummins, second by Fritz. Could you read the?
I'm just going to wait a minute.
Yeah.
Heard you. Did you hear?
Yeah, she heard. She wants to let the folks
Yeah.
exit.
Okay. A, approve the bills memo in the amount of $999,819.11. B, approve a resolution to comply with the requirements of 2011 Public Act 152 by adopting the annual exemption option for the medical benefit year January 1, 2023 through December 31st, 2023. C, approve a special event request to hold carols and lights, an East End community party in Bolt Park on Friday, December 9th from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. and allow amplified sound. D, approve the purchase of a 2022 Ford Police Interceptor upfit and the not-to-exceed pricing totaling $16,490.83 from Great Lakes Upfitting of Holland, Michigan. E, approve a resolution supporting the Ottawa County Brownfield Redevelopment Authority undertaking and managing a brownfield plan on behalf of the developer for the diesel plant property. F, approve the task order 007 change order with HDR and the not-to-exceed amount of $40,277 to be reimbursed by the Grand Haven Board of Light and Power. And our new item G, approve the purchase of one F-250 pickup truck and one F-450 pickup truck and the not-to-exceed price of $96,194 from Gorno Ford of Woodhaven, Michigan for the truck chassis and $46,809 from Truck and Trailer Specialties of Dutton, Michigan for the utility truck body.
Any discussion? Murray, would you please call the roll?
Cummins?
Yes.
Fritz?
Yes.
McLaughlin?
Yes.
Lowe?
Yes.
McNally?
Yes. Okay, we're going to move to new business, Murray, all right?
Consideration by City Council of a resolution to support Michigan Forestry Company's 3-year forest management plan contingent upon securing funding. Park Board recommends approval. Duncan Park, Cemetery Board, and Administration all recommends approval.
Can I get a motion to that effect?
So moved.
And second.
Is there any discussion?
Yeah, a lot of great detail here. There's a lot of.
It goes on for pages.
What's that?
It goes on for pages, that's for sure.
You think there's detail?
Well, it has a page for every tree, right? So,
Yes.
But one thing that did obviously strike me is that part of this plan would involve potentially removing a lot of trees.
Mm-hmm.
So you kind of talk a little bit more about what that process would look like. Is that we approve this plan, there's funding, and all of a sudden that's just going to happen automatically? Is that get looked at, in more detail by some of the boards and commissions or by council? Can I touch on kind of what maybe the public's interest is briefly what that looks like?
Yeah. For people who are here and people who are in the audience, I summarized a little bit of what we're talking about tonight, which I thought might be useful. If it's okay, I'm going to just let that out, and then Derek, maybe we can, you can answer Ryan's question. I wanted to say a few words about the forest management plan that the staff is recommending we pass a resolution to support this evening, particularly for the benefit of folks in the audience, either physically or virtually, who may not have had the opportunity to dig through the forestry action and stewardship plans that accompany the recommendation. First, the good news. The city of Grand Haven is home to the southernmost virgin forest in Michigan. Between 3 parcels, Duncan Park, Mulligan's Hollow, and the Lake Forest Cemetery, the city owns roughly 200 acres of mixed hardwoods and conifers. Though we use these parcels for very different things, together they form a forest ecosystem that has great value to the city for aesthetics, for recreation, wildlife habitat and viewing, flood control, air quality improvements, summer cooling, and a host of other reasons. Next, the bad news. Our forest is not healthy, and if we don't take action soon to help the trees, we will lose the forest over time. Part of the problem is tree disease, oak wilt, beech bark disease, and hemlock woolly adelgid, which I have a hard time saying. Part of the problem is the lack of an understory. Our forest lacks a healthy mix of ground cover and the seedlings and saplings necessary to replace aging and diseased mature trees. The lack of understory is likely caused by overgrazing by deer. Our forest also has problems with a number of invasive species, mostly shrubs that, if not addressed, will spread and force out native plants necessary for forest health. The cost of keeping our forest healthy is substantial, estimated between $175,000 and $345,000 per year for the next 3 years that frankly we don't have. The hope is that by passing a resolution of support for this forest action plan, the city may locate and qualify for grant money, and the community may bring its incredible philanthropic spirit to bear to help. Developing this information has been a citizen-driven initiative. Dr. Larry Burns, see him in the back, a Grand Valley professor and local resident, and his son Nathan became concerned about the health of our forest hemlock stock, and honestly, through personal perseverance and private funds, both theirs and donated, have driven this issue to the forefront. They've been supported by Dr. Allison Locker, a Grand Valley forest management professor, and many of her students who've used our forest as a lab for examining different management challenges. They've enlisted the help of a professional forester. They've presented and gotten support from all 3 of our relevant citizen boards, the Parks Board, the Cemetery Board, and the Duncan Park Board. I walk one or more of our woodlots in town almost every day, and I'm incredibly thankful for those who've selected our city's forest study for their health, or forest health for their study. If we're a community that values sustainability, preserving tree canopy has to be a priority. So Derek, I think Ryan's question was, one of the things I saw in the study was we might be taking 40% of our beech trees out. And another thing I saw was due to oak wilt, they have to cut, if they find oak wilt, they have to cut trees within 100 feet of it. So is this something that you're going to manage, that a private foundation is going to manage? How are we going to make this work? Any ideas?
Well, that was well said, Your Honor. Derek Gates, Public Works Director, and yes, it's a tall task to manage these 200 acres of prime forest. It's the intent of our staff to work with Dr. Burns and Dr. Lockhart to once we secure funding. Tonight's resolution allows us to actually go and search for some of that funding. We might not find it all. We might find it in bits and pieces, but without your support of the plan, there's really no opportunities for us to get some of that funding that is out there. But no, I think the answer to your question, Councilmember Cummins, was that, yeah, on a case-by-case basis, when we do find these invasives, some of them call for some drastic measures. We want to utilize the least drastic measure available, and some of those have been identified as a clear cut, so we don't lose more. Some of them are regulated by the Eagle as far as this is a critical dune, so we can't do some, we can do some. We're working with Eagle. Dr. Burns is helping with that to try and have them authorize some of the less invasive opportunities to control these invasives. But without a plan saying, hey, we want to address it, and here's some of the ways, it's not every way, and there's going to be more as the years wane on. But it's a very tall task. $500,000 to $1 million over a 3-year period. I'm very hesitant to say we can achieve that. So maybe it's a 5 or 7 year period, but we got to start somewhere. And Dr. Burns has really helped us, focus on this. Our city staff members are greatly involved in it as well. Todd Brand, our facility and grounds manager, and Earl Jorgensen, our grounds crew leader. Very knowledgeable in our tree canopy and willing to work hard to it. But we're going to need some resources.
Got any other questions?
Derek, in the study, and this is a big elephant in the room, is the deer population. Is that something that I know people don't want to talk about this, but is that something that we should start to seriously take a look at when it comes to culling the deer population? I know they do it in Ottawa County because I saw something about it. I mean, is it something that I know there was a plan put in place. I don't think it was ever approved by City Council, but I don't know. It clearly is a major portion of what's going on in that forest, and they say it very clearly in Section 5 about deer population.
Sure, and yes, Mr. Kuipers, who's a registered forester, has identified that as well as Dr. Locker, I believe, in one of her reports. The deer population is not helping; it's hurting. How do you deal with that? Is there's a few different ways. So, that's up to you as a council to set that policy. But if we just let it go unchecked, we'll continue to have no understory growth, and eventually, when all the the mature, majestic trees pass, then we're going to be left with a very sparse forest.
Okay, so it's something that we ultimately have to tackle if we want to or not.
I made sure that when we talked about this with them, that we weren't hemming ourselves into a corner as what to do with them, just that it is a problem in the forest.
I just can't see us putting fences around everything. I mean, that would be, you talk about huge amounts of money.
Sure, absolutely.
Not to mention that you'd be fencing them out into the neighborhoods. I mean, basically, these are the issues we're going to have to face.
It's not only deer that eat the lower habitat.
Yeah.
There's also rabbits.
It's true.
I mean, we have a large population of rabbits. I know in our neighborhood we do.
But I think
because
in the
I
woods,
see them
fewer.
eating the trees.
Yeah.
As the snow comes up, you can see the trees, and that they eat the small trees. They eat them off the bottom. And also, I've seen squirrels destroy trees. I mean, if you look in our neighbor, they pull all the leaves off, just strip them down, and the tree dies.
Mike is a defender of deer, I know. And
I'm a defender of wild animals all myself, because my grandfather had a celery field right where the Chevy dealership is, and this was back in the day. I'm talking late 50s, early 60s, and you think it was deer that was actually outside of town at the time, and you think you raise celery. What do you think deer like? Come on, celery's the best thing they could ever eat. I mean, come on, it's like anything. It's great tasting. But he learned to plant different flowers and stuff around there that would take and distract the deer from coming down the railroad track and coming in the back there and eating all his crops, because that was his livelihood. There's different things to do. You can make to take care of deer too.
Yeah, and I'd just like to say on that, I do think that this is something that council needs to address. It might not be our top priority, but if we're going to spend a lot of money and looking at doing all this and try to recover, we need to look at some of the root cause of that. The only thing that I would say, Councilor McLaughlin, is it's a very complex issue when you start to look at the free access you could cull a certain area, and that's even dangerous because it's so close from a residential perspective, and then all you have is the migration in from the township. So we've got to manage this in a creative way. I'm not opposed to that, and I think that's one of the tough issues that this council should should look at and address rather than just looking the other way. But I think we need to do it in a more comprehensive way. But I respect that we brought it up as a serious problem here.
Yeah.
Yeah. First step is to approve this plan, and then look at that down the road.
Anybody else?
No.
Brian? Would you please call the roll?
McLaughlin,
Yes.
Fritz,
Yes.
Lowe,
Yes.
Cummins,
Yes.
McNally.
Yes. Larry, thank you very much.
Yes, thank you.
Okay, second item of new business.
Consideration by City Council of a resolution to adopt the amended special event policy and amend the fee schedule accordingly. Administration recommends approval.
Is there a motion to that effect?
So moved.
Is there support?
I'll second.
Sorry, I can't make a phone call.
I'll second.
Motion by Cummins, second by Lowe. Is there discussion?
I'll second.
She's going to second it.
Gonna vote for it. I heard it
Yeah,
second.
I know, right.
Discussion, folks?
I don't have anything further to add than the prior discussion.
Oh, on the special event? Is it, are we,
I gotta, is Shar around, and is Shar still in charge of this? I had a couple questions. Wait, is that Dana?
We'll take team. Yes, hi.
How about that? Okay. Here are my questions. You want to introduce yourself first?
Sure. Shar Saisei, Community Affairs Manager. And I'm Dana Culloware, Special Events and Project Manager.
Welcome, Dana. I think no one's happier to see you than Shar.
Yeah.
Okay, my questions were, there's a provision in that I think was added that if use of the marina parking lot is requested, the applicant must reserve and pay for 10 parking spaces in a public lot to be used by marina guests. Was that added?
No, that was not.
That was in the original?
Well, so.
How do you do that? I mean, where would those come from? Would someone mark them marina guests only? Is that the deal?
Yes. In the past, when that provision was in the actual written special event policy, that has been on the books for a long time, last adopted in 2018. So that's a portion of the policy that was reviewed. The only time that has ever happened is when we've had Salmon Fest. And Salmon Fest has not happened for the last few years, and it's not happening in 2023.
Okay. All right, then it said, if ticketed events at the Lynn Sherwood Stadium, they'll be charged $1 per ticket sale. So I thought it used to say 10%, and now it says $1, is that right?
That is correct.
Okay, and so if the ticket is a $30 ticket, it's $1, and if it's the $5 ticket to the water ski show, it's $1?
That would be correct.
Okay. Okay, there's nothing in here, and these are things that every time I read it, something new comes up, but I'm sorry for that, because I know I should have all my questions organized at the beginning, but I think there is I'm going to call it a custom of giving recurring events recurring slots. So there's nothing in there that I could see that formalizes that. So my question is, should there be?
Well, that certainly at this point, we've handled that as staff, and immediately after the event ends from the previous year, we make sure that we're identifying what dates that might be for the next year, just so that it's on our internal calendar. But of course, we kind of hold that until we get the paperwork in so that we're formalizing that process. But we didn't feel at this time that we needed to put it in the policy.
Okay.
But we can certainly.
That's fine, so long as there is some understanding that recurring events would generally get recurring slots.
Correct.
Which I favor, but maybe should be discussed. Then the next question is, let's say on the 1st of May, is that when what's the
March
due date?
1st was the
March 1st,
deadline,
okay.
yeah.
1st of March, you get 3 event requests that all want to use the same space. What do you do?
Sure. That's a great question. Well, you know, we honestly had not debated that. However, I think we'd first look at which events had maybe previously taken place at that requested date, that requested location. And certainly we would have discussions with those applicants and see if there's some way that we can work it out, if we can switch locations. We would talk internally before there would be a final decision to say we're going to allow this one but not this event. We would be talking with the event organizers before that decision was made.
Okay. And try to work them out.
Yep.
Okay. I don't have any other questions. Thank you very much. And welcome. Kevin?
We had a discussion especially about the YMCA. How's that going to be handled?
Want me to answer?
Go ahead.
Okay.
You were about to.
So we have those few events, Coast Guard being one, the YMCA being another, that have been taken out of that policy because they're different. It was my understanding from the discussion that was had by council that you did not want them included in that, paying that 10% of that fee schedule. Yep.
Right.
So currently they pay $500 for the Mulligan's Hollow for their summer camps, and if that's where city council wants that to stay,
Okay,
then
that's fine. That's what I was concerned about.
Okay.
Thank you.
But it only applies to their summer camps. The rest of their events would
Correct.
be under the normal policy.
Right.
Okay.
Madam Mayor?
Yes, Karen.
Just a quick question. I don't know if we finished our conversation about off-season, whether or not we charge in the off-season, or are we doing anything special to incentivize organizations to have their events here in the off-season? Again, where most people want to do it between May and September, but did you have any thoughts on that, or did Joyce did the chamber have any thoughts on that?
Well, we did not include anything in this policy that would incentivize specifically off-season events. We do see off-season events come in. It's just naturally occurring that, as you mentioned, in the summer months, that's where most people are going to want to host most of their events. So we didn't offer a discount for those shoulder seasons, but we do see monthly events, and I think as we continue to refine our process, it makes it that much easier for applicants to come forward and to work with us on those shoulder season type events. And I think you see organizations like the Main Street and the Chamber, they're looking at those shoulder seasons as ideal times to host events and bring in additional traffic when businesses are looking to increase traffic to their stores or their businesses.
I just mentioned that because while I'm comfortable with this fee schedule, I just wonder if we want to do something, more from a year-round perspective. Do we have concerns about that, or do we want to give you guys some leeway outside of, some of those months? So I just want to throw that out there. The other comment I want to make is regarding our fee schedule. I think there was just some confusion with the public, and I've gotten some feedback from some of our constituents, and I just wanted to clarify that the city of Grand Haven isn't a foundation or charity. We are a municipality that has to spend taxpayer money on providing some basic city services. The facts are we have nearly depleted our fund balance, which we've used for the past few years to sort of make up for shortfalls. And for those of you, we've not just cut out the fat in terms of going over the budgets. I think Derek and Chief Hawk will say we're now cutting down to muscle and bone, quite frankly. Regarding the pension, we've stopped the bleeding, which is really great by closing the defined benefit plan, but we still have to find our way, to climb out of a $30 million unfunded pension liability. The cost of cleanup on Harbor Island, not known, and we've got nothing in our savings account for that. But we've had to kind of pull money out of, a rabbit out of a hat. Ashley and her team have done a really good job just to find money, and Derek, just to pay for some consulting, right? So that we could get the holistic view that you all wanted of that cleanup. For those who watched that budget review meeting, you know, we scrutinized every line item. Our city department heads have been running understaffed. They've done some things to save money, but it's not a sustainable, you know, way forward. It was in a pinch. Many of you don't know, but they took across the departments a 3% budget cut this year, and they've been scrambling. But to say that that doesn't have an impact on our, you know, organization is being very, you know, naive. So capital projects, you know, I know Derek wanted to do a whole lot more capital projects, but miraculously he found a way to stretch some, you know, things out more, and he continues to go out and get amazing grant money, which we appreciate. But, you know, we as a council need to do our job, and that means we can't just give away money that's not ours to give away when we have these other things to, you know, pay for. So we're not in a position to give away $80,000 in fees, even if we wanted to, and that's not our role. But I think someone suggested that we never did that in the past, and that's not true. In prior years, we had been waiving. It's just that we were very inconsistent in terms of fairness and equity. And what we wanted is what you did, Char. We wanted some rules around it, some consistent standards that we could all follow and understand, so that it wasn't your favorite charity or my favorite, you know, nonprofit that got waived. And I'm not suggesting that you know, happened, but you may have gotten some pressure. This just makes it very clear, fair, and equitable to all involved. Anyway, I just wanted to say thank you for putting all the work together to go through this difficult, you know, task. I know there's a lot of people that aren't unhappy, but they need to understand we're trying to do the responsible thing with regard to our budget and our fiscal sustainability, I guess you would say. So thank you for your work.
Okay. Anything else? Please call the roll. Maria.
I'm not done yet.
Mike, I'm sorry, Mike. Go ahead.
On this whole thing is, I want to say thank you for all your hard work. You did exactly what the council has asked you to do, come up with a plan, so I appreciate that so very much. I know it's a lot of work and everything, but we have to be very careful. The fine line that we're doing here is some of these organizations that do come in here and put these events on, bring people to our town, and it makes it more vibrant. If you lose a few of those, we won't have that same attraction that we've always had. And I've seen that some people on our members of my council have picked certain organizations that they didn't want to charge them more, and I didn't think that was appropriate, because there's other organizations that I really think is more appropriate, that are more be handled that I didn't ask for. I will not ask for you to give away. But the only thing I will ask is the council still have the right to say if we want to waive fees or not from certain organizations. Because if we take that away, sometimes we're not going to have those same people. They're not from this town. They may be in a township. They may be in Spring Lake or Ferrysburg. That are putting events on in here and doing good for the people of Grand Haven. And they're also the same people that make the donations when we want to have the coal tipple done, we want to have the pier done, we want to have all these things done. These people are making their donations. They're not necessarily from the town, but they own businesses here and everything else, and they're working hard for it. If we start taking away too many of those, I know $88,000, I remember Mr. Cummings saying, well, that's pretty cheap for an event organizer. You said at one council meeting we had on it, you're saying, because you were an event organizer, you know what it's like. It's expensive to have an event organizer have all these events going on. $88,000 is cheap to have all these events around. But we got to be very careful that we don't lose that base that we have, that people want to still give to us when we ask them for something we need help with, because we don't have the money to take care of the pier. We don't have money to take care of the lighthouses. We don't have money for the coal tipple. We don't have that kind of money. But we have a very generous community that helps us out when we ask them to. But a lot of those same people are the same ones that are putting on these things. Be very careful. I'm just giving you forewarning what might happen. And I'm afraid that it might happen to us, and I don't want to lose that base.
But we don't want to have a string of people, of organizations coming in every single day asking for the waiver. Either we're going to have these fees or we're not going to have these fees.
Absolutely, because that's what happened. We gave away a fee. If you listen to Joy Gash when she sent us a letter, we gave them the money that they paid to us. This past year, we've given away everybody that came in here. I've never seen that before. We've waived fees for everybody, and it's not where we took it under consideration. So I was upset with that when I started that, and I just still today I'm still upset that we did that in that route, because you're absolutely right, Kevin. We gave away the farm. We didn't look at them very closely. We didn't organize it. We didn't say yes or no to it. We just said yes, go ahead, and we gave everybody clear run this year.
I would just like to challenge that, because what I thought we did is, my understanding is, we had waived $60,000 the year before in various, and we couldn't explain the consistency and fairness and equity. And so what we did was asked you to study it, come back with a recommendation, and in the interim, we were not going to pick and choose winners, which is why we gave away a total of, or your estimated $80,000, in the interests of fairness and equity, not special favors. So that was my understanding, Councilor Fritz, of what we did. We were waiving fees prior to that. We didn't just start doing it, this year. We tried to do it a little more equitably. That's what we tried to do. This is much better because we're not giving away the money, and we're doing it, if we follow the policy, in a fair and equitable way.
I think we found balance, and I think that was a misunderstanding that some had, and some of even the emails that were received, is that these aren't new fees. These are fees that have been on our books, that the council has set these fees for a number of years. And we've already, in our fee schedule, kind of recognized that some people are for-profit, some people are non-profit, some people are residents, and some people are non-residents. And so we have fee structure that kind of takes into account some of those items. But I think where we found the balance is that we're not saying that we're not willing to do any waivers. What we're saying is that we're only willing to waive up to this amount. So I think we are recognizing we have fees and that are on the books, but we're still willing to do some waivers, but do it, more fairly, equitably, and in a better balanced way. And I think for me at least, I think we found the right balance, at least for now, and we'll see how it goes.
I also want to say, Karen, you did it earlier, talking about getting more in the off season. And that a good example was like Winterfest, what it does for us during that time period. You have to take them in consideration, because they is just a donation type organization which does it for the city of Grand Haven. It's not that they have to do it. That's one point you were saying, is we need to shoulder more off season. We need to get more people. That would help us to attract more people here. That one event, that Winterfest event alone, attracts a lot of people in the off season. So
I agree,
we had
100%.
more. I have to say, yes, it's probably a good idea that we could lower the fees down for them in the off seasons, because of course, Grand Haven, you got the beautiful beach. We have everything everybody wants. I mean, but in the wintertime, it closes down. I mean, we need to bring it back. If you want a vibrant downtown, you want a vibrant town and everything, we have to attract
Those are the
that.
kind of waiver requests I'd like to see.
But that's what I'm saying.
Here at council is for the more for the off season, or ways to incentivize events. And I think the mayor said it at the last meeting, we have quite a few events during the summer season. How do we incentivize people to do some things in the off season?
And certainly too, just keep in mind that approval of the policy doesn't mean we can't relook at the policy again after we have some time with it and see how it's working, what's working well, what might not be working well. Not a fan of always changing policy a lot, but I think, because we're making a change to something that we need to kind of see how it goes, we're certainly, able to come back with some other changes if needed.
Well, even Derek's, the fees that we charge for Derek's work, his staff continues, his salaries continue to increase. Does this really cover your expenses?
We do look at those fees every year, And last year was a little anomaly with some wage increases and changes, but honestly, I support every year in January when we put together the budget, you finally vote on it in June for a July 1st or a fiscal year budget, that these are the fees, and you can change those. I'm just telling you what the cost is.
Okay.
But like Dana said, we can relook at that. We can change the policy and change the fees, at any time, but typically it's done, at the fiscal year. And so we'll have an opportunity coming up this winter to look
Okay.
at that if that's what the council desires.
Thank you.
Okay.
On the labor-based fees, that is one thing for you and Chief. I would like to look at ensuring that we do have fully loaded costs of benefits, not just an hourly wage factored into that, so that we reflect our actual costs as a city.
Absolutely.
Okay, ladies, thank you. Maria, would you please call the roll?
Cummins,
Yes.
Lowe,
Yes.
McLaughlin,
Yes.
Fritz,
No.
McNally.
Yes. All right. New business,
Yep, new business
C?
C.
would you read it for us?
Award the 2022-23 Storm and Sanitary Sewer Rehabilitation Project to Plumbers Environmental Services of Byron Center, Michigan, in the not-to-exceed amount of $192,229.80.
Can I get a motion to that effect?
So moved.
Is there
Support.
support? Thank you. I'm sorry, I pulled this from the consent agenda. I asked Ashley some questions this morning, and I didn't get any answers yet. And it's your misfortune that while I was looking at this, I've been plowing through the the updated draft of our master plan, and there's a substantial portion of our master plan that has to do with climate change and how its effect on this region, and specifically about best practices would be to increase our storm sewer system capacity, because looking forward, we are likely looking at heavier rain events more frequently. So Matt, I didn't know whether this was a place where we should be looking at that, but I just wanted to point out that these things align, and if there's an opportunity to do that here, we should, and if this isn't the right place, we should look around. Does that make sense? Matt Wade.
It does.
Sorry.
That's all right. Good evening, Council, Mayor, Matt Wade, Streets and Utilities Manager, Public Works. And yeah, so I guess just to answer your question, these sections here do not correlate with any type of needed increase or expansion. Cured in place plastic pipe is a material that's used for very specific situations, and we can save a lot of money repairing sewer lines, storm sewer lines, such as the one under the new, what am I trying to say?
The new stadium.
The new stadium. Yeah,
Right.
so there's a storm sewer line that's under the stadium, just reconstructed, and it's failing. So this is a perfect project for that.
Okay.
Without having to dig it up.
Okay.
Howard Street reconstruction.
And our engineers are on top of it, and I don't have to worry about it.
Correct.
Okay, cool. That was my only question, and I appreciate it.
The cured in plastic piping is the best way to go.
Maria, would you please call the roll?
McLaughlin,
Yes.
Fritz,
Yes.
Lowe,
Yes.
Cummins,
Yeah.
McNally.
Yes. Okay, next new item.
New business D, approve a Grand Haven Charter Township Ferry Street Transmission Main Agreement and authorize the mayor and clerk to execute the necessary agreements.
So
Can I-
moved.
Thank you. Is there support?
Second?
Support by Cummins. I pulled this one also, and it's because I read this and it looks like, I had a couple of questions. One is, how much of the township do we supply water to now?
We supply water to the vast majority of the township. There's a small section in the southwest corner that the city of Grand Rapids supplies. I think it's like 21 houses or something. I'm not.
Is nobody in the township on wells?
There's quite a bit of on wells. I'm saying
Okay.
the vast
So,
majority of those that have.
The potable water we're
yeah,
supplying.
That's correct.
I looked at this in conjunction with the potential for, 2 weeks ago, we were looking at water intakes with limited capacity and needing to upgrade them. And so what I'm trying to figure out is, have we baked into our formula, when we recapitalize this plant, we're kind of a static, the city is sort of a static water user, I would think. But the township, to me, is expanding. I mean, it has expanded in population and in uses. So have we baked into a formula somewhere that the township is going to bear its fair share of whatever costs we have for recapitalization? And I'm not, I just, these are questions that it seemed like we ought to look at when we're talking about, like, I looked at this and it said, we're going to dig up a road to put in a water main up Ferry Street, and they're going to pay to repave half that road, and we're going to pay to repave the other half. And I kind of went, well, if they dig up our road to put in their water main, why are we paying for any of the road resurfacing?
Well, some great questions, Your Honor. And Eric Law, the water filtration plant manager, did email you very late in the day.
I'm sorry.
That's okay.
I didn't
He has
see
some
it.
great explanations on some of that, but I'll summarize those.
If you can tell me, Derek, it's fair
Yep.
and it's forward-looking, that's all I really wanted
Yeah,
to
no,
ask.
it is fair. Those we looked at an an intake expansion. We authorized a very high-level study from Prine Newhoff a few weeks ago. Those that, and when that intake gets constructed, it's going to be paid for by those that need it. And like you said, our city usage is, it's been flat, and we're, and we might be adding, when we add residents with the new, units downtown, stuff like that, or Robinson Landing, who's another 30 homes, we'll be adding a little bit of usage, but there's also some contraction with water consumption. And so we're going to be stable flat, but the township's going to have, we'll continue to grow. Those expansions will be paid by those communities. It could be on the north side, but the other thing is with partnering with them on this road resurfacing or construction, they only need to disturb half the road. So really, they should be only paid for half. I think it's a great time for us to then go in and say, well, let's have a whole new road surface at that time, and say we'll pay for the other half. It's almost a mile, and it's a good thing. The capacity with this transmission main was outlined in the most recent reliability study that all 7 communities and the plant participate in. So we had one big look, and our problem isn't capacity at the plant per se right at this moment with the township. It's how to get the water there. We can't get enough of it to them when they need it, and it has to do with the size of their pipes. So this allows them, it comes off their existing transmission main and will connect to their system. So it's just another avenue for them to gain water to the system. Not how much they're already using, what they use. It's just a different avenue. Think about it as a straw. They've got a couple straws and they're just too small. They're going to add a third straw.
Your Honor? Derek, I thought I also remembered Eric talking a lot about the impact of people in our city of using sprinkler systems, and that he could tie that. So just in terms of the usage versus incentivizing people to really be conserving water, some of those best practices, which some people are practicing, but others are not, and he said that they would be rolling out sort of a plan around that. So I just, I trust that you guys kind of have the fairness out there. I just didn't want anyone in Grand Haven to think that we didn't need to do anything. We've got a lot to do about learning more about water conservation and about, peak usage for watering our green lawns as opposed to.
Holistically, as a water authority, we all need to be looking at that because it's everybody that's watering. It's not just the township. The city does, but in the grand scheme of things, they're growing leaps and bounds as far as population. So that's where the demand will come from with the intake is the next step. So, but no, we do need to be. We want to have a holistic plan so we're all treated equitably as far as what we ask for at first, and then years down the road may require, may have requirements on irrigation use. So But it's a mindset we need to change over time.
Education,
Yeah,
yeah.
absolutely.
Agree.
Okay. Maria, please?
Fritz,
Yes.
Cummins,
Yes.
Lowe,
Yes.
McLaughlin,
Yes.
McNally.
Yes.
All right. New business E, adopt a resolution approving the amended Ottawa County Central Dispatch Authority Agreement.
Can I get a motion to that effect?
So moved?
Second?
This is, my issue on this one is about liability insurance. There's, Central Dispatch to me is a function that has significant potential for legal liability if they make a mistake because of the nature of the work they do. And I was trying to figure out whether and this is, maybe Ron has some insight into this. This is a 20-year-old agreement, and it's requiring $1 million insurance policy. The Central Dispatch will keep $1 million liability policy in effect. And my general sense is the $1 million today isn't what it was 20 years ago, and if they haven't updated their liability limits, and we're going to reformat this agreement anyway, it would be a good thing to look at. So I asked Ashley, do we have a rep to this board? And she said, I'm it, but I've only been once, because they only meet quarterly and sometimes only semi-annually. So I don't have any problem with approving this, but I'd like to say we'll approve it contingent upon her taking a look at whether that group is interested in upping the liability insurance, and if not, whether our insurer is standing behind it. Because basically, the way I understand it, if someone makes a mistake, the communities that support Central Dispatch pay for the mistake pro rata, or, could. So, does that make sense? I'd like to.
Would you like Ron to look at that?
I don't know that it's a legal issue, actually. It's really a
I think you'd want some input from the insurance consultant.
Adequacy of, yes, with the insurance consultant, that's right. So what I would like to do is amend this, if someone would support that, so that we adopt the resolution approving the amended Ottawa County Central Dispatch Authority Agreement, contingent upon the city manager inquiring about liability insurance limits. And if she's satisfied with them, once she's taken a look at them, I'd be okay. But $1 million raise the hair on the back of my neck. That's all I'm gonna say. So
I'll make that motion if you want me to.
Thank you, Mike.
I'll do that.
Yeah, I think Mike, you made the motion, I seconded it, I'm fine with.
Very good. So I'm comfortable with it.
okay. You got it, Maria?
Mm-hmm.
All right. Could you please call the roll?
Fritz,
Yes.
Cummins,
Yes.
McLaughlin,
Yes.
Lowe,
Yes.
McNally.
Yes, and thank you, guys. All right, public hearing. I'm going to open a public hearing concerning the establishment of an obsolete property rehabilitation district at 300 North 7th Street, and to establish a finding that it is an obsolete property in an area characterized by obsolete commercial property or commercial housing property pursuant to Section 31A of the Obsolete Property Rehabilitation Act, Public Act 146 of 2000. The public hearing is now open. Brian.
Good evening, Brian Urquhart, City Planner. This is, as you mentioned, a request to establish a OPRA, Obsolete Property Rehabilitation District, for 300 North 7th Street. This is a tool in the toolbox through the MEDC that they have for redevelopment projects. It was introduced at the September 6th council work session, and Peter Wilson is the owner and inquired about this process. Essentially, the first step is to establish a district, and then if that is approved by council by resolution, then you can apply for the tax certificate through the State Tax Commission, which essentially would freeze the current taxable values for a period of up to 12 years. So it's an economic development tool for properties such as this that are determined to be obsolete. One of the reasons how this was started was because this was a redevelopment ready communities priority site, and that was listed as an opportunity for that to be a tool in the toolbox. And so in the conversations with the Chamber of Commerce, with Peter Wilson, saying this is an opportunity to kind of help spur that development along, and it's encouraged to have that take place in the Centertown district. So it's been done before by the city. It was the Crescent Building, I want to say in 2020, was approved for obsolete property rehabilitation district and a certificate. So all we're asking for tonight is establishing that as an obsolete property location. And then moving forward, if there's more details on the actual project, amount, investment in there, that can be discussed at the time of certificate. So that's what's before you tonight, is just that specific parcel. And I do know that Elizabeth is here from the chamber and went around. We wanted to make sure that we saw that as other support in that area, because we want to see this as an opportunity for a site that is obviously seeing some challenges just because of its age of the structure and other things that go along, that is going to receive support from other businesses and other property owners in that area. So it aligns with a lot of our economic development strategy goals, the master plan, things like that. So these are just tools in the toolbox. Not common, but something that we can also look into and incorporate. So I'll just want to introduce that, as that's the site, and then eventually, if it is approved, it would be available for a certificate request after it's approved. So,
thank you, Brian. Elizabeth, have you got anything you want to add?
I can just share that I have talked to a lot of the business owners and managers along the 7th Street, along over there, and there has been pretty good support and synergy with the businesses with Peter Wilson and what he's proposing to do. So it was all positive.
Anybody got anything else they want to say?
I'll just speak quickly since my name's been mentioned. I'm Peter Wilson. I'm the owner of the property. And yes, we're asking for this really as a first step in the process. As Brian mentioned, a tool in the toolbox. This doesn't get us all the way to the finish point. It merely opens up the possibility that we can pursue this and I can apply for the process. There's still issues of parking and other things to sort of make sure that that's the right use of the property. But that's a road that was introduced when it was called a priority redevelopment site by the city initially, and that's what kind of clued me in that this is something you could do. So we're trying to get approval to start the application process and see where it takes us. If any questions, I'd be happy to answer.
I'll wait till after the public hearing.
Okay. Anything else?
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, I'm going to close the public hearing. And I think at this point, we need a motion.
So moved.
Well, I got to find my spot, sorry.
Consider, resolution.
Would you like me to read it?
Yes.
Read it first.
I got it. Go ahead.
Consideration by City Council of a resolution to establish an obsolete property rehabilitation district at 300 North 7th Street and to establish a finding that it is an obsolete property in an area characterized by obsolete commercial property or commercial housing property pursuant to Section 3(1)A of the Obsolete Property Rehabilitation Act, PA 146 of 2000. Administration recommends approval.
So moved.
And I'll second it.
Okay, discussion.
Brian, I got a question for you. The tax exemption goes up to 12 years. Who
Correct.
makes that decision?
City council does.
Now, what is going to be provided to us to let us make a decision on that? I mean, is it going to be pro formas? What comes before us so that we can make a legitimate? Because frankly, I'm just telling you right now, I'm not in favor of giving anybody 12 years.
Okay.
I think
Okay.
that's craziness. but-
My best guess is what their level of investment would be, and
Yeah.
then how that would, what the taxable value would have been for those years that you would give an abatement.
Okay.
So that would give you a quantitative value of how much you are abating for that period of
Okay.
time, 1 to 12 years.
And then you put in, obviously, the income that he's going to have with the expenses, and that would all be
I believe
provided to
so.
us.
I believe so. That's what would be at the next step.
Okay.
So,
As long as that's not done yet. I mean.
yeah, I don't think
Okay.
he has finalized numbers or a pro forma yet. Is that correct?
The application process is pretty onerous. And there's a lot
Yeah, I saw it, I understand.
But
So in that, there will be a lot of those calculations before you, when you make your final decision.
Okay.
Like I said, this is just creating the opportunity. It doesn't get us to the end point.
Nope.
Okay. No, I just wanted to bring that up, that's all.
Yeah.
Obviously, am in favor of it, I was just interested. Thank you.
But before we can make this determination, we have to make a finding that this is an obsolete property in an area characterized by obsolete commercial property. So how do we make that finding, Brian?
That is something you speak and certify with the assessor, which I did speak with Josh Morgan, and he has confirmed that they would be supportive that that is a obsolete property, defined under that district, under the definition in the act. So I did get a chance to meet with him on that.
You did?
Mm-hmm.
All right, and you've got some statement from the
Yeah, I got
assessor
it.
that that's an obsolete property? Because I looked at the definitions under the act, and in my view, and I mean, he's the assessor. He
Mhm.
says, okay, but there basically are three kinds of obsolete properties, and one's blighted, which frankly, I don't think it meets the criteria for. Let's see, one's functionally obsolete, which I don't think it meets the criteria for, and the last one was a facility with environmental issues, which as far as I know, it doesn't meet the criteria for, and it has to be a blighted property in the area of other blighted properties, and the rest of Centertown has been looking pretty good to me, so I'm wrestling with how we meet the
Okay.
requirements of the act, frankly.
Okay.
Yeah.
I spoke with him, he sent me an email, I could share that, if that would give you some
and
assurance.
It's from our assessor saying, but he didn't.
It meets the
he
criteria.
didn't- Say it again?
It would meet the criteria under
Would meet the
his
criteria.
determination, yes.
Okay.
I trust his decision.
Yeah, if he says it, I probably
Mhm.
agree with you, Mayor, but.
We tried to get out in front of that and ask him before the district.
Yeah.
So we're
Good,
watching.
because
Yeah.
I think, but he doesn't say what he bases his characterization of it as obsolete as?
It did not specify that in his email, but I'm certain I could get some more clarification on that if you
Because
so
it has
choose
to
to.
be an obsolete property in an area characterized by obsolete commercial properties or commercial housing properties.
Well, we did that for the Crescent Theater, the old Crescent Theater over there.
Yeah.
You know,
You did do
and
that.
and
That
and
also.
if you go through all that criteria, still, it wouldn't have fallen into it because it was being used and all the businesses were up and going.
Yep, I know. I don't know that it was right at the time.
It has to be, doesn't this have to go through the state also?
Yeah, after it's approved as a district, he would come and apply for the
Then it goes to
certificate.
That's right.
And then it goes to the state tax commission if it's approved here, and then it would go to the next fiscal year's tax. So it
If they
freezes
decide
out.
not to, that comes back.
Correct.
Okay, I'm all set then.
I'm good.
That's what I thought, that's what we did last time. They had to go to the state, and they had to be there okay on it.
Correct. There's like a couple steps, local, and then goes to the state for final approval.
Anybody got anything else?
No.
Please call the roll, Maria.
Lowe,
Yes.
Fritz,
Yes?
McLaughlin,
Yes.
Cummins,
Yes.
McNally.
No. Okay. I think we're at second call to the audience, unless I've messed that up. I'm going to call this the second call to the audience, the second of two opportunities to address council on any item, whether on the agenda or not. Those addressing council are asked to provide their name and address and will be limited to 3 minutes of speaking time. Council will hear all comments for future consideration, but will not have a response at this time. Those not physically present who would like to may call in at 616-935-3285. You're up, John.
Hi. Thanks again for hearing me. I'm sorry the young lady left who had brought some questions forward regarding the petition. You know, this is an important enough topic, and I feel I did my due diligence in reaching out to the owners and managers at these facilities, and the fact that there was some question about it. You know, was that you? Oh, I'm
Joyce?
sorry. I'm
Yeah.
sorry. So I apologize for not getting your name, Joyce. And the other thing is, I want to give you this list. This is the list of names of the businesses, and I gave you them tonight. That I spent a lot of time and effort visiting and revisiting until I felt that I had the right authorization from the owner or their representative in the form of the manager. Maybe in one case, like for example, today I talked with Heron Hive. I spoke with the owner's daughter who's in charge there, and she said, yes, absolutely, we would be opposed to closing down the street again. In some of these cases, I went back 3 times to get these signatures. Sometimes I would be handed the phone and would talk to them on the phone, and they would say, okay, I'm going to tell Sally, my employee, to sign this on my behalf. I mean, I really went to a lot of effort. And in fact, there's some lists of employees here for businesses that I could never actually contact the principal on, or their store manager. I mean, I just couldn't get to him. So I do have quite a number of employees. I have a number of residents. I have a number of visitors, as I mentioned, you know, other folks like delivery people and so on. But
the list you provided, John.
The list you provided, I feel that I went to a lot of trouble to get, and I wouldn't sign it, I wouldn't put it on this list until I felt on the petition that I had the actual owners or their directors' authorization. And I feel really bad if there was some misrepresentation or misunderstanding would be a better word, of what kind of a process I went through. Because it's important, and I sense there is some difference of opinion about what we do with this downtown, but I just wanted you to be aware that there is a really strong, large block of business owners in the 3 blocks, not outside of it, but in the 3 blocks, that feel that it isn't what it's cracked up to be, and that it is preferential. And so, you know, I don't want to go back and revisit all that, because, you know, we've been down that road, but I wanted to make sure that I let you know that I really tried really hard to get those. And I also wanted to say that you were one of the voices on that DDA council that really gave me confidence that it was a serious deliberation, because you said, this is like complete shock news to us, or to me, that there is this question out there. And I felt like a lot of the process had been kind of hurried and not really communicated or reached out to us as business owners, but I felt like you actually took it seriously, maybe as much as anybody on that board, and I really appreciated that. And so when you said then, now tonight you wouldn't have done it if you'd known, I'm like, oh man. And even if it was only 20 or 15 or whatever, that still would be a significant block, and I still think that details are important, but it's not. And I went over this list and I looked, there's only like 6 of them.
John?
I'm sorry, am I done?
I think we're good.
Oh, okay,
yeah.
I'm sorry. Anyway, thank you.
I think Joyce understands, we understand, we know where you stand. Thank you very much. Yep.
Doug Vance, 100 Washington. Just like to say that regardless of what happens with this, if it's decided that Washington Street is closed, I'm going to jump back in. You know, as Jeremy knows, back in the early days of COVID, we were given a spot and a half to try to set up some tables, which it was so ridiculous. I just said, you know, just come and take them down. And we tried the sidewalk. We were told, no, we can't get the sidewalk, in spite of everybody else getting the sidewalk, so I didn't understand that. But now that I know that the drink carts make so much money, I'll put in for taking that scooter space in front of our place and putting our own drink cart up there. But finally, this, you probably all know what this is. It's a parking ticket. It was issued on 10/28, a rainy day, 5 cars in the parking lot behind a copper post that holds, I think, around 35, 36 spots. I mean, it's from an employee. I'm going to pay it. I decided if this continues, I'm just going to have to put a budget item in for paying employee parking tickets. But the employee parked there, number one, because it was rain and it was a cold day. The unrestricted parking areas across the street that are all but designated for condo owners, and by the Armory, the same, were all full. And she just chose to think that, my goodness, there's no cars in the parking lot. Do I need to park over by the tip a few and walk through the rain? No, I'm going to park there, and she paid the price. Really? Yeah. 30 open parking spots, and public safety is doing their job. I get it. That's the ordinance. They're doing their job. But really? At the last meeting, I had a brief conversation with Ryan right at the end of before I left. And on the way home, I thought about it, and he actually came up with the absolute perfect solution to our parking problems in downtown Grand Haven. And I'm not talking about Washington Street. Those should be restricted. We don't want people parking there all day. I absolutely agree with that. But in the parking lots, number one, all the ones on the south, only ones on the south have any restrictions. None of them on the north have restrictions. But Ryan came up with a perfect scenario. He says, you know, when I go to Myers, I don't get, sometimes, I mean, raining, snowing, or whatever, I might have to park way far away from the entrance. And you're exactly right, Ryan. Let's make Grand Haven a Myers parking lot. First come, first serve. If you get the one closest, great. If you don't, so be it. And that solves all the problems. Great suggestion, Ryan. Thank you.
Hi, Joyce Workman again. Just a couple of things. One is, as far as the R&R committee, Chris from Surf Shop sits on that as well, and he had some concerns that he had expressed, and twice I went down and met with him and talked and looked, and George Gardner, who's the chair of that committee, he and I and Chris met again, and we do feel that there are things that need to be corrected. That's life. You do something this year, and next year you learn this didn't work, we do things better. And so all of those balls are in process concerning the outdoor dining. The second thing I want to say is my business in October was down 25%. Honestly, I kind of would like COVID again because COVID was really good to me. So I filled my car up today at $4.25 a gallon. We are all making choices, and I don't have outdoor dining in front of me. And actually, the day that we did Chowdown in Centertown, all of my neighbors had better than normal business days, but me. So, all of those things factor into this. At the end of the day, as a business owner, Jeremy can do whatever he can. The 3 of you can do what you can. The 5 of you can do what you can. But bringing business to my door is my responsibility. And I just have to work within the parameters that are around and embrace those opportunities, even if sometimes they look like they're not an opportunity. And then the last thing is, I just want to be clear. I've said this before to this group, but I agreed to serve on the city council, or on the Main Street board, because I want to serve. I believe I have a servant heart, and I want to listen to what people have to say. So it doesn't matter to me if there are 14 or 42. I do want to serve, and I do want to hear. And again, I did bring the motion up to delay it, to kick it back to R&R, because it is important. However, when you're not looking at something last minute and you have time to plan it out, it gives you an opportunity to see the picture clearer. So I can just tell you, as a as a member of the Main Street Board, I commit to you that I will be working to make this process better for everyone. Not perfect, but better for everyone. Thank you.
Thanks, Joyce.
Hi, good evening. Gary Boyd, 1855 Colfax. First of all, someone left a phone in front of me. It's going off right now if someone wants to take it.
Thanks, Gary.
Don't know who that is. Oh. All right, so I don't have any skin in the game on this social district. I live and work in East End. However, I did run a restaurant downtown for 12 years, right on the corner of Harbor and Washington. So I do have some intimate knowledge of how the industry downtown works. Downtown is broken. It needs some help. The guests are broken, staff's broken, ownership's broken. This is a good fix. Now, if you're going to have limited hours, you should have limited space. If you're not going to be open for business, then you don't get the space. That's fair. That's life. Retail needs help. Retail has empty spaces in front of them. So if there's an increase in cost to use this super valuable space, then maybe you increase it enough that you can spend some of that money to help the retail out. Maybe we can create some things that retail can do in their spaces to bring people in, whether it's move their signage out to the street, create their own little parklets. Maybe they can have ongoing sidewalk sales on the weekends in front of there. But it's a way to use that space that's also equitable to them. Okay, you get people there. I imagine it'd be great if Calico Cat could have a really cool sale every Friday, Saturday night, while people are out playing cornhole. And then. I mean, that's it. I think that you have to have some sort of cross structure too. You are talking about on-season, off-season cost structure for city event space, right? That makes sense. Well, we've got drink carts, or we've got picnic tables, or we've got to-go. Those are 3 different options. Those are 3 different cost structures. If you're going to do $10,000 a night in a food truck and have space out front, that's a different cost structure. And I know John, like he said, be happy to pay it. The money's there. They'll make their own money. No matter what, they'll do it. They'll figure out a way. That's one of the things that restaurants do, is figure out the way to survive, or they don't survive. So it's just my 2 cents. I don't have any skin in the game. I just thought I'd give you an opinion of someone who knows downtown a little bit.
Thank you, Gary. Okay. I know it's here somewhere.
Report by city council or?
Our closure, we need a motion to close.
Report by city council first.
Oh, okay. All right, I got you. We're going to do report by city council, and Ryan, you could start.
Real quick, go out and vote tomorrow. All right, that's it.
Okay, Karen?
Yeah, I have nothing, Your Honor.
Mike?
I got just a few things. MML, which was really good, and I know the mayor, you were at one of the sessions there. There is money out there for us to get for small communities and stuff in that. There's a lot of that COVID money out there. We need to start focusing on trying and getting some grants out there to help on Harbor Island. There's a possibility for like grant writers and stuff like that to move forward with it. That was what we learned at MML. Also, the four-way traffic lights out here are all right, but the only problem is if you're coming up in the morning, the sun's in your eyes, you don't see the red lights because you're looking right into the sun. Four-way stop signs, can we add four-way stop signs there instead? Because people, they're more eye level.
We're yes, because of the delay, we're gonna try and do something. We got to cover the signal heads if we're not going to utilize those as well. So
that makes it a lot easier for them, because I tell you, if you in the night, if you're coming this way into the sun, you're looking up, you're looking right into the sun. Even though it's a long story, but
okay.
I've been approaching it. Also, down at the Jackson Flats down there, all those parking spots around that are supposed to be public parking. And right now, they're looking like it's going to be for their tenants, and we have to get some signs or something down there saying that this is public parking.
Is this at Peerless Flats?
Peerless Flats, I mean, yeah.
There are
Flats.
signs down there, Mike.
They
It says 3-hour parking.
I know, but
it
it
was
does say,
fascinating.
does that say it on there now? Because it wasn't in there.
Some of them are anyway.
So there's
several
First
of
Street
them.
and Fulton are both signed already, and we're waiting for some supplies that were delayed getting in to do Second Street,
Okay,
which is the
just
most
wanna make sure
recently
Yep,
paved.
they're coming.
All right, just want to make sure we get that stated so that it doesn't be tenant parking over the winter.
Sure, absolutely.
You want to get you comfortable?
Because we want to make sure that they can get to the farmer's market and that during the seasons when they're open and that. And that's what it's for. And also that parking lot is supposed to be a public parking lot.
Yes, it is. It is public, and that'll be signed as well.
Okay.
Wait,
And
which parking lot?
The one at the corner of Fulton and Second.
Fulton?
yes, that parking lot is supposed to be a public parking lot.
Okay, yep. Mhm.
Okay, that's all I have to say, except for let's get out and vote. Every vote counts. Make sure you get out there and do it and vote for whoever you think is the best for yourself.
Okay. Kevin?
No, I'm good.
Oh, Your Honor, I did have something.
Go ahead, Karen.
I get out and vote, and I also just want to lay down the gauntlet. The mayor and I were the only ones who showed up from this council in costume at Central Park Place to give out treats to our youngest constituents. And so I'm going to just throw the challenge out there that we might need a male member of the council to join us next year. How about that?
I stayed at my house, and I was in costume on my front porch. If you want to come to my house, be glad
That
to.
doesn't count.
I sit there all the time because I have a constituents of kids that do come into my house and are looking forward to say yes. And second of all, one more thing I want to add is that we had a great event at the airport when they had the trunk or treat out there, and it was very, very, I mean, they needed assistance out there for the police department for the first couple hours out there, because there's like over between 5,000 and 8,000 people out there. It was just a line that was unbelievable, and they were having kids walking across Comstock Park. They were parking over by the factories and that, and the traffic is going there is 45 to 55 miles an hour, and it was just like an accident ready to happen. And I think in the future you might want to make sure that we get out there and have somebody out there when it starts, at least the beginning of it, because it was just unbelievable. So I want to say thank you to the airport board and everybody that did that. It brought a lot of attention to our airport, and it was really good having airplanes out. The kids got to sit in them. It was good.
Okay, I had two quick things. One is, I wanted actually to thank the BLP for stepping up and funding the mod to the HDR contract that allows us to move forward with the wetland remediation steps we need to take to move forward on testing wells. So I thought that was a good thing to see, and I was really glad they did it. The other thing I wanted to talk about was This morning, I went to a groundbreaking for the Tribune Lofts project. It was a really good turnout. There were about 35 people, 40 people. I had a really good chat with Denny Charette, who said it's going to be a beautiful building. So I'm holding him to it. And actually, I think it will be very interesting to see. He's very proud of the fact that his son was there and is a sixth-generation Grand Haven resident, grew up here, and he wants to do something nice for the town. So it's going to be a big building. It's going to be, I think, in a pretty tight space in an area that's going to see more congestion over the years. But I told him, I said, I've never been to a groundbreaking for a building before, but I've watched a few ships launched, and it was kind of a similar feeling, and that there's something significant and virtuous about breaking ground to build somebody homes, people homes. So I'm wishing good things for that project, that it's safely and expeditiously completed. And that's all I got. Derek, as city manager.
I will defer all those, what Ashley was going to say, to the next council meeting, so.
Okay, and we are going to actually go into closed session for consideration by city council pursuant to section 15.268 subsection 8 1H of the Open Meetings Act. And we're going to go into closed session.
Can I get a motion?
I'll make the motion and I'll second it.
All right. Moved by McLaughlin, seconded by Fritz. Can you call the roll?
McLaughlin?
Yes.
Fritz?
Yes.
Lowe?
Yes.
Cummins?
Yes.
McNally?
Yes, and thank you all. All right, are we shifting to the other room?